Good morning. Week 3 NFL season, Fantasy and Frames Sunday pregame show. Let's get it written. What that was supposed to say is let's get ready, and it turned into let's get moving. And that's the way the week 3 is going to start off, with a lot of uncertainty and chaos. And as the games unfold, trust me, as we talk about it, there's a lot that's going to happen. Maybe on the fly, we'll kind of find out. Not on the fly is a little family reunion we have every Sunday morning with the Fantasy and Frames crew. I'm your host, Nate Markham. Yes, I have taken the reins this morning because they said who can talk the longest and not know what they're going. It's chaotic as can be. I'll just lead this whirlwind of confusion into somewhere, and we'll see where this goes. So joining me as always is my brother Jorge. Jorge, good morning, my friend. How you feeling?
Doing great, man. Getting ready to take on these next set of challenges in week 3. A lot of great matchups this week. A lot of fun stuff to talk about. A lot of fantasy action to talk about. If you've head over to fantasyandframes.com, check out our articles, our rankings, or our YouTube page. Check out everywhere. Everywhere we're at, social media, we got you covered. So looking forward to this week, Nate.
Yeah, I am too. Across the pond, Jonathan, I really look forward to Sundays because we don't get a chance to talk all that much. How you doing, man?
Yeah, well, good. Starting to feel a lot more kind of autumnal here, which is nice. It feels like it's NFL season. So, yeah, looking forward to getting into it.
Yeah, well, good. How your Packers are one of the teams that I'm saying with confusion and chaos, and I'm eternally grateful that they have a 12 o'clock start so that your decisions come 3 aren't impacted, because there's a lot of them across both sides of the ball for them that have me, I don't want to say worried, but I guess maybe confused is probably the proper term. Preston, how you doing this morning, man?
Man, I'm cool. Glad to be on board. Week 3, let's beat them Jets.
Yes, sir. They're definitely making it easy. I don't want to say easier, but a little bit easier. Dwayne Brown left tackles out. We know, obviously, anytime you have Zach Wilson at the helm, that's already, I think, 6 points in the Patriots' direction as far as I'm concerned. Sorry, Zach Wilson, truther. There's only probably one of them out there, but she still exists. And Kyle, how are you this morning, my friend?
Man, I'm doing great. Took the kids out to SeaWorld yesterday. We have annual passes there, and enjoyed the day. Today is Sunday, though. Wife knows it. Kids knows it. Ready to rock out week 3.
Look at this. Just throwing the season pass of SeaWorld in our face like some baller on the program. Good Lord. Jeez. I tell you. So, yeah, if you have start and sit questions or SeaWorld questions, direct them to us. Kyle will be your
just there.
He was
Sesame Street is live there.
Oh, boy. How's that?
Information you didn't know you needed, but you do.
Yeah. Oh, it was great. The kids, just seeing the kids smile and everything just puts a smile on my face. So it was a good time.
That sounds like a good time.
By the way, Kyle, nice veteran dad move. Way to knock everything out on Saturday.
That's it.
That's a veteran dad.
That's it.
Sacrificed for Sunday. And
that's right.
Yeah, fun fact, in San Antonio, I fed one of the killer whales at SeaWorld and got a whole mouthful of, I'd say, poop saltwater. So do not recommend, FYI. So another piece of information you didn't know you were getting this morning. But yeah, you get everything. We got about 3 hours. So we're going to dip our toes into every little area possible. So yeah, I don't know about you guys, but on the docket so far, I mean, we have a full slate of games. We have injury updates. There might be some weather to talk about potentially. We're going to go from starters across the board to IDP, talk about flex options. And when we talk about flex options, my man Preston's going to be giving you his recommendations throughout the morning to which players he finds to be like, the best flex options for you in week 3. which man, in the injury riddled world of the NFL, it is who knew Preston, who knew the flex spot might be our most valuable spot on our roster going into week 3.
Oh yeah, these players are dropping like flies early.
It's it's crazy. And I guess on a positive note, if from Thursday night's game, there wasn't too many injuries that happened. But before we jump into that, if you're on Twitter or Facebook and you want to interact, please jump over to the YouTube channel. We'll have all your questions answered between one of us here. And then ideally, Jorge, I don't know about ideally, but since they're not here, we can say that. I think we may get the addition of Les and Stacy and David and Chris. The rest of the family will be showing up to the barbecue, hopefully bringing some delicious sides. Kyle, what's your favorite side you'd bring to a barbecue if it was right now? What are you bringing that we would all eat?
My wife makes really good mashed potatoes. I'm not even gonna lie; they are that good.
Yeah,
mac and cheese is good too, but she makes just a banging mac and cheese or mashed potatoes. Yeah, she is
pretty good.
They're really creamy. Like she knows just. I gotta share with you guys sometime.
Jonathan, he did not say bangers and mash. He said banging mashed potatoes.
I know. I
want to be clear.
Something crazy out there.
Yeah, we don't want to bangers and mash. Actually, I don't know. I can't really complain about anything. Preston, I know this thing on the show sheet, but what are you bringing?
Baked beans.
Yeah,
baked beans. That's a good call.
You put meat in them baked beans.
Meat and syrup.
Yeah, now we're talking. I can't. Which. All this just a precursor to one of my favorite segments is tailgating frames, when Courtney's going to let us know a little bit about that. I don't know what she has on the docket for that, but
it's tasty. It's tasty and delicious.
You've had it?
I put it. Well, I saw it, and I immediately, when making the video, I politely yelled upstairs because my wife's all the way 3 stories up from where I am.
The meatloaf.
No, exactly. Do we have fresh peaches? Do we have fresh peaches? Jorge, it is 5 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, is that a yes or no? I don't know. Anyhow, that's more of a tease than I should have given. You all should stay tuned for that before we get to the 4 o'clock games.
Dude, that's actionable advice. If people listen to the information given on this show that rapidly, which you might not have a chance, or you have to do so, that's pretty good. So let's talk a little bit about Thursday night. Giants 49ers. It was, I don't know if it was exactly like you guys expected, but it's exactly like I expected. I figured the Giants are kind of a shit show. We don't really know outside of which we thought was Darren Waller, and that's still proven to be inaccurate. Is there Preston, going forward outside of when Saquon returns, who are you actually comfortable starting from that team week in, week out?
I'm very disappointed. I have so many shares of Darren Waller. I thought it was going to be different.
Me too.
But it was after week 2. It was pretty much what I expected from the Giants going against San Fran. Straight boring. It wasn't even no activity on our chat, so it wasn't even nothing to keep me going. So
even Houston and Jacksonville is going to provide at least a little bit of conversation on our chat to really know a game's good. But yeah, Kyle, on the opposite side for the 49ers, we saw the same thing that I think we've seen for the past couple of years. When one player's out, i.e. Brandon Ayuk, 2 or 3 of the other names have big weeks. This week, it was really kind of all 3 of them. Kittle, Debo, and CMC all had the weeks. But is that something that you kind of plan going forward, that somebody's going to be hurt? Or is that a situation that you're seeing some cohesiveness where you're comfortable moving up some of these guys? Because I was down on Kittle as that for that same reason, but I don't know if you can't just take a long shot each week. Sometimes you have to trust in that.
A lot of those 49ers are must starts now going forward. But my question to you is, what about Brock Purdy? We haven't talked about him and how efficient he is. Is he moving into where you can start Brock Purdy at quarterback?
Feels feels dirty
I
to say
know.
that, right? I mean, it's one of those things where it's like, is it going to be a Purdy game or is it going to be a CMC game? Shanahan scares the hell out of me because of the NFC Championship back in 2020 when it was basically the Raheem Mostert game and Jimmy Garoppolo had like 4 pass attempts and they didn't need him to throw the ball at all. The defense was humming. The running game was humming. And he could very well do that now. Here we are in 2023. And you just never know whether that week is going to be the week that he only needs Purdy to throw like sub 10 pass attempts in order to pull out a victory. What's up, Chris? How are you this morning?
I'm well. How are you guys doing?
Doing all right.
Good, man. I anything take from Thursday night game that you saw that maybe went unnoticed, Chris?
I think I don't know if it went unnoticed. I see a lot of people were talking about it, but Brock Purdy has the Game Genie no interceptions code on.
Yeah.
So ever since he started, I mean,
yeah, he does.
he's probably had like 12 interceptions that have been dropped like since he's been started, and it's absolutely amazing to watch. You know, so I've been saying like he is the luckiest quarterback in the league right now. But at some point, I mean, it can't all be luck, right? Like, I mean, he's doing something.
Yeah, I think what's going to happen is we're going to have this conversation about 4 times this year, about every quarter of the season. We're going to look back and we're going to say, man, is he startable? And then we're going to look at the numbers. We're going to go, I mean, he's averaging 17 points a game. Whoop-de-doo. That's, you know, but it's like, if you know you want the QB 11 on the week, if that's what you know that you need, then yeah, I'm down with that. The problem is no one ever wants that. Everybody wants the upside. Everybody would rather take like an honest question at some point could be Justin Fields versus Brock Purdy, which is disgusting to even think that we're that far. You know, we're 3 weeks in a season. That conversation's coming up. But I think that I'm hoping after this week against Kansas City that it's even closer because Fields has another bad game, but we'll see how that goes. So,
Okay.
Unfortunately, the injury train continues to roll through the NFL season, and there's plenty to talk about. Jorge, you know, the running backs we know have taken a hit already on the season. Good news on Nick Chubb, though. You guys see all that. MCL only. I mean, it doesn't – I know that ligament issue has not as much to do. You know, I mean, I'm sure muscle – around that specific can help decrease the injury or whatever. And the guy squats 1,000 pounds. So I'm sure that's helpful, but I am blown away that when we saw the knee wrap around his body 3 times, that it didn't do more than MCL.
I haven't watched it. I have zero desire to watch it. All I needed to see on Twitter was like, oh my God, they're not going to show it again on TV. I'm like, nope, no. Yeah, to only have an MCL tear, they were saying like it was the ACL was stretched but doesn't require surgery. So I'm like, okay, just feels so good for the guy in the sense that it could have been so much worse based on what people saw on TV.
Yeah, I think anybody that went out and optimistically made a trade for him in the Dynasty circles probably, I would say, got exponentially better value. But I don't know if how many people were active. I mean, there's some people.
There's going to be those people who are
that
like,
immediately, they see him. He gets hit, and before they can cart him off, people got 10 trade offers for him and everything else.
Yeah, I went to Twitter war with somebody on that.
We know.
Don't get Jorge started.
We're not. We're going to move on to Austin Eckler, who out for another week. Josh Kelly with the bat. You know, I think a disappointment week is an understatement last week. Well, do you guys want to talk individually about each one of these, or do you just want to get into some of the games and we can cover some of these injuries as the games come around? Because I feel like a lot of the information that we're going to talk about again.
Let's get into the games, man. Let's do this.
Yeah, let's start. Let's one Eastern, 12 Central for us Central folks to start off. Tennessee at Cleveland with an over and under of 38. I don't know if this is going to be that amazing game that everybody's looking forward to watching. This might be on par with that Thursday night game, but I don't think it's going to be as much of a blowout. The injuries, haven't really hit too hard here in this particular game. Derrick Henry was banged up throughout the week. DeAndre Hopkins did not practice on Friday, but he is trending to play. I don't know if that's a positive or not. Pete Skoronski is out. He had an appendectomy for the Titans offensive line, which is kind of big. And Kyle, let's start with you, man. As far as this matchup, we know the one specific narrative is that Tennessee is a pass funnel. Deshaun Watson. I've been against Deshaun Watson pretty much the season. I didn't necessarily buy in as much as others. Are we buying in this week?
Oh, I think you have to. I mean, I am a Titans fan. It was noted last week, and I know how bad our secondary is. So this is the game for Deshaun Watson to have that type of game that you're looking for out of him. If he doesn't do it now, I don't know when that day will come.
Yeah, I mean, that's true. I mean, Jonathan, Amari Cooper, you have to assume is in a pretty good smash opportunity. How high are you comfortable? Is Amari Cooper wide receiver 1 for you this week?
No, but only because I am nervous about Deshaun Watson. I mean, with the Nick Chubb injury, they're likely going to put more onto Watson's plate. He hasn't looked comfortable so far, and so I'm just still really nervous as to what version of Deshaun Watson we're going to see. He still looks rusty. He still doesn't look 100%. Cooper, I am quite high on, but yeah, and like we saw how good he was last week in that. What did he have? 7 for 90. I think he is going to see solid production, but I think top 12 is maybe pushing it a little bit too far.
So then, Jorge, if let's say Amari Cooper is the obvious play, who's the less obvious play at wide receiver? Is it Elijah? Oh, actually, you know what? How about let's talk about Donovan Peoples-Jones real quick. Donovan Peoples-Jones kind of quietly could be a sneaky option, but would you rather have Donovan Peoples-Jones or Treylon Burks? That's a shit question to start off, isn't it?
I would take Burks, to be honest with you. But before getting into that, you mentioned Elijah Moore, and I know, Preston, you have some thoughts on Elijah Moore.
That's exactly right.
You wanted to hit on. What are your thoughts on Elijah Moore in this game?
Well, I think Elijah Moore is actually one of my flex options for the week. That's the only reason I wouldn't see Amari Cooper as a number 1 wide receiver for the week. This is the game for Deshaun Watson. If he doesn't do it this time, if he doesn't do it against this defense, then we might want to ring the alarms. That team there, they've given up like 281 passing yards to offenses. Elijah Moore saw 9 targets last week. So he really likes Elijah Moore, it looks like. I think that if he's going to have a good game, Elijah Moore's got to get involved. So I believe firing up Elijah Moore this week as a flex option is a good deal. He's going to get you 10-15 this week.
Yeah, I really like Elijah Moore. I worry more about one specific area of this team, Chris. And I think a lot of people spend a lot of money on Jerome Ford, and Tennessee is quite possibly the best run defense over the last year and a half. Are you slotting Jerome Ford into an RB2 in desperate times, or are you just trying to pivot to something better?
I would hope to be able to pivot to something better, but be that as it may, we know how this Titans defense is like when it comes to the run, and that they, like you said earlier, is a pass funnel. But also, this Cleveland Browns team is built to run. That offensive line is built to run. That system is built to run. And so if you look at how good that offensive line is and how good that running system is, I mean, it still brings it back to neutral, even if it's him like running that against this stout defense. So if I had to flex him, yeah, I'll put him in there. I don't want to put him as my RB2, but at the same time, I don't think he's going to be a dud. I don't think he's going to look like Madison did last week, just because that run scheme is so good in Cleveland.
Yeah, I think that if And it's not one of those situations where Tennessee's run defense is so good because they're so easy to pass on. And I know that's a narrative that a lot of teams have, unfortunately. I think this is a situation where they're just actually well coached against the run, and they have a team designed to do that. Let's get to the first question of the day, and I think it's a good one. I think Drake London, Gus Edwards. If anybody have any, I would say, discernible choice between the two?
I would prefer London, which is something I never thought I'd say, at least, this point of the season, just because I'm not a huge fan of the passing attack there for Atlanta, given what Arthur Smith has been doing. I do like the fact that Gus Edwards doesn't really have any quote unquote competition in the red zone now with Justice Hill being out this week. So it really kind of relies on him. I know they brought in Kenyon Drake, but
yeah,
whatever, it's Gus Edwards' backfield, in my opinion. But given the fact that this is Detroit, that Detroit can put up points, that they do have the receiving options to do so, whether it's out of the backfield or at tight end or at wide receiver. Josh Reynolds came out of nowhere last week. So Atlanta's going to have to keep up with that. And I think London's going to be the primary pass catching beneficiary there.
Anybody on Edwards?
I would take Gus Edwards over Drake London. He's going to get the volume, and the Atlanta Falcons offense isn't a high-flying, potent offense where they throw the ball a lot. So I don't see a lot of volume heading Drake London's way. I would prefer Gus Edwards in a game where they're favored by 8. I assume there's going to be weather conditions, so you're going to have more running. I would go Gus Edwards in that situation with no Justice Hill. He's going to be the bell cow there. You may see a little bit of Melvin Gordon, but for the most part, it's going to be Gus Edwards, and I'm going to take those carries and run with it.
Preston, you're the tiebreaker.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Gus Edwards as well. That I think they're still gonna Atlanta's still gonna run the ball. You gotta neutralize Aiden Hutchinson, because that boy's an animal. And the way you do that is run the ball, and that's what they're good at.
Yep, that's exactly right. Like Keith said, the linebackers can't cover. Lions linebackers are a little very interesting area to discuss, because we know Alex Anzalone's not the best in coverage. But yeah, Bijan should feast today. I've heard Kyle Pitts' name mentioned in a few different areas. Man, that's a tough one too. God, Kyle Pitts just
That's not in game with people actually talking about him catching a ball. You never actually hear his name then.
Oh yeah, exactly. No, it's they talk about him. Usually it's athletic profile and situation and how he hasn't caught a ball yet. That's conversation fodder. There's not a lot of conversation, I think, from the Tennessee side, if from an offense that looks, man, they look rough. And I'm sorry, maybe I'm just negative on that. I had my worries about Derrick Henry, but Chris, let me ask you a question. How much usage does Tajay have over this week by comparison? Because we've seen, I mean, man, I have somewhere his usage on the season is borderline. Like if the guy in front of him wasn't Derrick Henry, we'd be talking about a situation that's on par with some of the elite running backs in the league from usage metrics.
Yeah, I think that as the season continues to go along, that Spears will be more and more active. Derrick Henry, we all know, like, the guy's a monster. Like, he just goes out there and he just does his business. But I mean, I'm not betting against him, but he has so many miles on those legs. Like, he's carried the ball so many times, so many of those, mini car crashes a game. And if you've watched him play, these 2 games, he doesn't seem like he has that juice like he's had like the last couple of years, whatever. And when Spears comes in there, he does seem like he's ready to go. So I think right now that he's going to start cutting into that Henry usage like a little more and more. I wouldn't expect him. It's probably like a 30% share, like maybe like right now, I'll say. But as the season goes on, I do expect Spears to actually have more of a role.
Yeah. So on the season, he has, and a lot of this information we talked about in the Slack chat, is that if you go to I'll endorse Fantasy Life, Dwayne McFarland's utilization report, and that information over there. It's a great compilation of just actionable advice. And Tajay Spears has a 45% snap share so far in the season, a 20% snap rush share. He is commanding an 11% target rate with 21% targets per route run, and 41% of the routes participated. So by those like 5 metrics, there's about 12 running backs in the NFL that carry those same ones. And some of those names are Jahmyr Gibbs, Josh Jacobs, Tony Pollard, Bijan, Mixon. It's James Cook. There's some interesting names on that list of something to pay attention to going forward. As we said earlier, it's a 2-game sample size. Let's not get carried away. There's been injuries. There's been a lot of things, but a little scary for Derrick Henry owners. Jonathan, are you scared about starting DeAndre Hopkins this week? We talked about him being banged up already.
Yes, a little bit. Probably not enough to really drop him down. I would kind of temper expectations. This Browns defense is really good. We saw them kind of shut down. I think they've given up the second fewest points. Obviously small sample size, but they have been kind of shutting down wide receivers. Like we saw what they did against Cincinnati. But Hopkins will still see, the vast majority of targets. Treylon Burks hasn't been what people hoped he would be, neither has Chico Okonkwo. So, we will still see Hopkins get that volume. So he does always possess a really safe floor. I do maybe worry a little bit about the upside today, especially with that injury.
Yeah. Jorge?
Yes, sir.
Hit some IDP. Must starts. Well, I mean, some upside plays. What you got?
So you're starting Hutchinson, right? That's a given.
Mm-hmm.
Upside plays, I really liked in your IDP start and sit article this week that people can head over to fantasyandframes.com and check it out. Tracy Walker, coming back from obscurity, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson out this week, and now he has an opportunity to kind of like step back into that role where he was very tackle efficient. And it can definitely help you out there. Alex Anzalone. Is it Anzalone or Anzalone? Did we ever figure that out?
I say Anzalone, but
it's not just you. It's not just us. I swear to God, every broadcast, like the two people in the booth, both the play caller and the color commentator, they each say it differently. And it's like, pick one. Have a meeting before the show and just pick one. Anyhow, I mean, he's a serviceable linebacker for you. For Detroit, that's it. Cade this week. Well, we haven't really gotten to.
It's all right.
Get into that game then? Should we go?
We can start on that game. I like the fact that you're just jumping right into that one, and I think that.
I'm sorry. We were supposed to be talking about
Tennessee and Cleveland. That just says a lot. That Hey, I love the fact that you're
all over the place here, so you got to forgive me.
Good.
Let me go into somebody for the Browns. No Zadarius Smith this week.
Well, okay. I think Zadarius Smith is playing.
He is playing.
Yep, he had a quick turnaround. I was thinking the same thing, man. I'm bummed out because I know you're ready to talk about, but I think that there's a case to be made that he's still monitor because Zadarius Smith has been terrible. And I wouldn't be shocked to see him get more play, but I do believe that Zadarius Smith is going to rain on our OGOK parade. Zadarius Smith is practicing, so unfortunately, not to cut you short there, but my disappointment resonates.
Yeah, I was going to go with Agbanya Okoronkwo, who last year we just dubbed OGOK because it sounds like a cooler nickname. So no OGOK this week. Obviously, Myles Garrett, Grant Delpit at safety or defensive back for the Browns. On the flip side, I like Danico Autry. Yep. I like what he's been doing the past couple of weeks. Defensive line. Harold Landry is still working his way back into form there. So Kevin Byard. I mean, those are the guys that just jump out to me. What about you?
That's about it, man. I think you hit everyone that I was going to talk about, of course. I was really hoping it was going to be OGOK, but it's not, and it will be okay. Speaking of okay teams, the Atlanta Falcons, Detroit Lions. I know. The Falcons are on pace to go undefeated this season, and that is only knocking them because last year I was, just talking shit, but it was fun.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned that, because the person who you were talking shit to 10 times out of 10 is joining us to talk about his Falcons and this game in particular. From Fantasy Six Pack, Mr. Keith Fleming. Keith, how are you?
Keith?
Hey guys, what's going on?
Nothing. We're just going to talk about
You doing all right?
this matchup where it's the number 4 rushing offense against the number 4 passing offense, and it is the number. So I guess I don't need to get into what reveal is this going to be. We know it's Atlanta, Detroit. We know Atlanta's the number 4 rushing offense. We know Detroit's the number 4 passing offense. But did you know that Falcons have allowed the second fewest pass yards, and the Detroit Lions have allowed the 10th fewest rush yards? So it's kind of a, immovable object versus what's the other thing? Unstoppable force.
Yeah, exactly.
But,
Hulk Hogan
yep.
versus Earthquake. That's what
Keith, did you expect me to do the unstoppable force, immovable object correlation to the Atlanta Falcons Detroit Lions game? You're welcome.
Hulk Hogan, Andre the Giant. No, I did not expect you to compare those two guys. I think it's a little smoke and mirrors, though. I think both the Falcons secondary is going to get exposed a little bit today, and the Lions quote unquote rush defense. You mentioned about the passing yards, which is great. We've also given up the 4th most passing touchdowns this season. We're 17th in pressure rate. There's still real issues. It's just we've played Bryce Young and Jordan Love, and it's why I was so high on the Falcons winning 9-10 games at a minimum this year. Is if you look at our schedule, it's the easiest quarterback schedule in the history of time. They got even easier with Aaron Rodgers now being out. That was one of the 4 tough QBs we face. I really think Goff is going to be able to move the ball in this Falcons defense. I don't love that St. Brown's banged up, but we're so bad versus tight ends. I know you guys know I harped about that all last year. We've given up 7 passing touchdowns to tight ends in our last 7 games dating back. So I like it's how bad I am with names, guys. Is it Laporta?
Sam Laporta?
Yep, exactly.
How do you pronounce his name, Nate?
Laporta. You're good.
Okay, I got it right. And then it's actually Reynolds is the guy that really because sometimes I get a little shaky with those, but Reynolds is the guy that really scares me for the Lions. We struggle with burners. He's had a connection with Goff earlier this year. No, Gator, I have not changed my stance. I love having Bijan on my team, but if you've seen Jalen Carter, only Micah Parson and Aiden Hutchinson have more pressures this year. He's played literally half the snaps that Hutchinson has, about 20 less than Parsons. And the big issue for the Falcons, and we'll find this out, I think, today, is we still can't get pressure. Lions have a great O-line. I expect Goff to feast, but, I put in the chat earlier, the Lions linebackers are pretty weak. And I really expect Bijan to have a monster game in the passing game today. And I don't want to say this, on the record because it's Arthur Smith and Kyle Pitts, but I think this is the day that Pitts has that game where people that probably own him have benched him by now and are going to be cussing because, he went off when you finally have him on your bench. I have him in a good bit of DK lineups because he's 3,900. The Lions are averaging giving up 7 receptions per game and over 85 yards to tight ends. So it's really kind of now or never. If he has a bad game today, I don't know what to say moving forward for Kyle Pitts. So a lot of people, like myself, took the bait again and we're thinking this is a Kyle Pitts year.
Yeah, I am in agreement. Go ahead.
Every year.
It's hard. It's really, we know that when you have a talent like that you just think any given week, all it takes is the coach to change his entire coaching philosophy and the team to revolve that around one specific player, not the alpha wide receiver also that they have on the outside or their, number 1 draft pick in the backfield, or the fact that they run, with both of those running backs in the, 21 personnel so much. there's a lot of things working against each one. That's what makes it Jorge earlier when the Drake London versus Gus Edwards conversation. It's like, I can see one of the three having a huge week each week. Problem is, we don't see that. So that game, I mean, very good synopsis there. I think some interesting DFS plays. Let me see. What was the over under there? Was that 43? Is that what it said?
Over.
46, actually.
46.
Oh, 46.
Over.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah. Saints in Green Bay is 42. I'm sorry. Yeah. 40. Yeah. Which, I mean, we definitely see some fireworks. Outside of everybody that touched on, I'm interested to see usage with Jahmyr Gibbs, of course. The conversation of his utilization going forward is going to be paramount. Craig Reynolds, you touched on. What type of usage, Preston, No, Craig Reynolds, a running back, taking David Montgomery's position.
I thought you were talking about the wide receiver connection with.
I was talking about the wide receiver.
There we go.
Oh,
I'm paying attention today, but like in spurts. So
I thought he got the name wrong. I was like, oh, he knows what he's talking about. Laporta, Craig Reynolds, Josh Reynolds. There's too many Reynolds on the team. But Preston, I am actively interested in Craig Reynolds' usage this week. If they I don't know if they're going to utilize the running game that much, but he's going to take David Montgomery's role. Is he flex worthy, or do you have a flex play for this week?
I think he's flex worthy. He's gonna take on the same role as Montgomery. I mean, it really ain't too much. Like, you don't game plan for Montgomery the same way you won't game plan for Reynolds. So it's gonna be he's gonna take the same. I think he's gonna take the same amount of work. Mm-hmm. I do think Jahmyr Gibbs, you'll see Jahmyr Gibbs a little more when Montgomery's out. But yeah, Craig Reynolds will be a flex play.
Yeah, and earlier,
Atlanta needs to lose. They need to really lose in order for our fantasy assets to be worthwhile.
Yes.
They have to lose.
I got unfortunate news for you is that Arthur Smith could care less about any of that because when they were losing games last year, they still ran the ball entirely too much. And that's something, Keith, I don't know if you agree with that philosophy. Sometimes, you just keep doing what works, but I think we had plenty of conversations last year where when you're down 12 with, a quarter to play, run the ball. They didn't have, Bijan, but still, I don't know. I agree with that, Preston. I think that's a very viable strategy.
You spend capital, you got to take advantage of it. Like, what's the point of picking a tight end top 5 and a receiver top 10 and then not utilizing them? Like, I don't understand it. And you know what opens up the run game? The fear of being able to go over the top to these athletic, weapons. Like, it's frustrating because they're winning. And I mean, I've said this about Smith from the beginning, like he gets the most out of his teams, but this is the first team we have with real talent in his 3 years there. And yet they're still, playing like they should be like underdogs. Right. And we have to limit the game and limit possessions. And I hope eventually he's opening up, and maybe it's a lot about Ritter and he's not quite there with him. But like the whole point of why people were so excited this year was Mariota was god awful throwing the ball last year, and Ritter just being any other quarterback was going to be better than Mariota and, throwing the ball. But you have to, in my opinion, take those chances and trust your team. And, Bijan's been electric. I'm excited as a Falcons fan to have him, but it's the same thing that I said on draft night. Best case, what are we going to do? He's going to have 4 great years. We're not winning a Super Bowl in the next 4 years. Then what are you going to do? Pay him? To where Jalen Carter is a guy that would have helped a defense that still can't get pressure. You could have paired him with Grady Jarrett, and you can pay defensive tackles, and it's okay. Like, it's okay to do that and be a successful team. I just think it's putting us in a no-win situation in a few years. But as a fan, I love watching Bijan, and I never doubted the talent. The dude's a freak.
Yeah. Wouldn't have been bad to have, you could have had Penei Sewell instead of, I mean, but at the same time, I don't think clairvoyance was their strong suit. So, I mean, that is.
We're the Falcons. We're going to mess things up. I mean, that's just what we do.
Exactly. And so I do see a number of questions in the chat, and I definitely want to get to them. I don't know if Jorge, if you want to get to some of them now, I'm happy to touch on them, or when we bring up the game, you're
so I'm answering
up
them
for
in the
whatever.
chat right now, but if we need to bring them back, we'll bring them back. But
Sure, no worries. Yeah,
we're good so far.
From the defensive side, Jorge, I know you started talking a little bit about Detroit with Aiden Hutchinson, and then the linebackers there are between Anzalone. Here's the thing I say pay attention to. Let's watch the usage. Jack Campbell still hasn't seen full snap compliments, but then again, nobody else has. Tracy Walker is one of my starts this week, especially considering the usage that Atlanta will have on the ground. I don't know if he's going to be able to attack Bijan, but whatever. At least fall on the ground and maybe he'll trip over your face, and that's still a tackle as far as I'm concerned by the scorekeeping. On the Atlanta Falcons side, I like Caden Ellis, but with Troy Anderson back, I'm not 100% certain that there's real high upside. There's not a pass rusher that I'm too scared of. Arnold Ebiketie is another outside linebacker that I thought had upside, but they're dropping him back into coverage so much now that he is kind of useless. Richard Grant is the guy I guess I'm going to probably go after in this matchup. I like safeties against Detroit. I haven't seen too many Jared Goff turnovers to the strong safety position, but he should have his hands full with combination of Laporta and checking on Jahmyr Gibbs out of the backfield, etc. So that's your Atlanta Falcons Detroit Lions matchup for 1:00. Keith, are you able to stick around, or is that what you got for us, buddy?
Sure. I mean, if you want me to do some DFS, I'm happy to. It's whatever you guys want to do.
Whatever you guys have time for. I just don't want to leave anybody out. So let's move to Jonathan. Let's go to the frozen tundra, or probably just it's just tundra at this point, but whatever. It's still there. This is the game that I got to tell you, I am grateful that it's at noon, because when you look at the list, the laundry list of people that are out or potentially out or questionable, it's pretty deep. So the over-under of 42 doesn't necessarily imply that there's going to be much action, but what is your take early on, Jonathan? Jordan Love, I have my reservations because of this. I think it's 11.5% touchdown percentage, which is total like 3 times the norm. So is this a come to earth game for Jordan Love, or he still ball out against New Orleans?
I think this is the best test so far. This is kind of when we will actually start to kind of really be able to grade him properly, because the Saints are a really, really tough defense for him today, and especially if you're going out there without Christian Watson. I'm not sure what's going on with David Bakhtiari at the moment, so that, and Elton Jenkins, the guard, is out as well.
Mm-hmm.
So you've gone from having one of the best offensive lines in football to some question marks there. Backups are probably better than a lot of starters for some teams. But yeah, this is the test for Jordan Love. I wouldn't be starting him in any one quarterback leagues. I think the Packers player that I'm really interested to see today again is Jaden Reed, because I think that as the season progresses, I think you're going to see him kind of, if he's made this start now after 2 games, I think that's something that we really need to take account of when rookies are starting really fast, because that's rookies build up. So if he's already starting from that kind of high floor, I think he could easily kind of become that wide receiver 2 on the team. I think pairing him with Watson is kind of that's a really good pairing with the 2 different skill sets. So I think he's the kind of one that I'm most interested in to watch today.
Yeah. Good morning, Bob Harris. And you talked about Jaden Reed, which I think is important, because when you see, like, from a ceiling point, 39% target per route run is obviously elite. That's, everything you could ask for and more. The problem is route participation. With him coming primarily out of the slot, they're not running a ton of 3 wide receiver sets. But as Christian Watson, if misses the game, obviously that inflates Jaden Reed. Speaking of rookies on the other side, Preston, Kendre Miller, flex option this week.
I've always believed Kendre Miller since the draft. I really like him. He's an electric, and this is your last week, and even going forward, I still some work, but they'll be the worst back. Tony Jones sucks.
That's great.
All that, everything.
Yeah. The
exactly what Preston said. 1 second. Let's work on getting Preston back.
We'll get Preston back. And unfortunately, through some of the garbled, the one thing we heard is Tony Jones sucks, and
I agree.
That was clear. That was so clear.
That was the internet gods were speaking, and they're like, you know what? Let's make sure people hear this part, which is true. He sucks, and it's not fair to Tony Jones, but he's going to suck not only for that, but he's probably going to suck for a lot of our fantasy teams because he's going to be the person who's going to jump in and vulture those touchdowns, and Kendrick Miller's going to have, I think I don't even know what my forecast is. Maybe 11 for 55 and 4 or 5 catches for another 34. I think is a fair number to put on a rookie for his first game. But the touchdown being vultured by Tony Jones would ultimately means that. How did you say that, Preston?
First of all, Green Bay has given up a lot of run yards to the run game. They give up 66 per game so far. And Tony Jones does. I heard that part. And Kamara's not going to be there. This is the week for Kendrick in this case.
Hold on, Preston. Let's bring you back in 1 second. Hold on.
I was just going to say quickly on the Packers run defense that, obviously we need to take some of these stats with a pinch of salt, given it's only two weeks, but the Packers run defense has been poor for
they play Bijan.
Yeah. And this isn't something that, has just been kind of a 2-week thing. This has been like a 2-3 year thing. And isn't something that is going to change. This is a matchup that we should be targeting for running backs. I think, I completely agree that Kendrick Miller is a really solid flex option today.
But my question to you, Kendrick Miller,
they've given up 15 receptions to backs too. Sorry.
Yeah.
My question to the Kendrick Miller flex players is how much usage do you think we're going to see out of Taysom Hill, vulturing some of that away?
Yeah,
that's the point at which I start throwing things at the TV, I think.
I actually picked up Taysom Hill in one of my home leagues from all my buddies from high school, and I'm starting him in the tight end spot for that reason. I'm going to take that floor game of maybe getting 2 points to the ceiling being 25. I'm going to take that chance.
Yeah. There's a lot of pieces, and that's the hardest thing about New Orleans. I mean, let's talk about the wide receivers as well. I think that we talked about the idea of not knowing exactly which wide receiver to start week in and week out. Not that that's like an indoctrination against Olave or Michael Thomas or Rashid Shaheed, but Juwan Johnson's been such a disappointment that I'm not even worried about him eating into any of the wide receiver target share. Chris, it's still that same hierarchy. It's still Olave, Thomas, Rashid Shaheed, or are you flip-flopping this week? Are you seeing enough out of Michael Thomas in those, high percentage looks? Still Olave.
Yeah, for me, it's still Olave. He's still the guy. Now Slant Boy, I think he's doing a little better than a lot of people thought he would this season because he missed a lot of football in the last few years. But so when Carr gets in his bag and he starts doing his things, he likes to chuck it, how efficient he is. That's neither here nor there. But Olave seems to be the guy that benefits from Carr's game the most. At the same time, Thomas is still going to be steady, getting his across the middle, for those easy throws. And then Shaheed, he's just a wild card where he could be a boom, or he could just be not a lot happening. But for me, I agree with that. I still think it's Olave, Thomas, and Shaheed.
Yep, I totally agree with you there. Let's get to a question here because I like this. I think this is very similar to the one earlier. Oh, sorry if I interrupted that. Okay, I'm hands off. Jorge, you do it.
Thank you. All right, here we go.
Thought I was in charge here this morning. I can't even get finger control of the. No, I'm kidding. Let's talk about this. Is a flex spot, 0.5 PPR. Jordan Addison, Gus Bus, Kyle.
Yeah, I knew you were going to go to me first because I've been talking high on Gus Edwards. And you know what? Jordan Addison has played extremely well. I'm still going to go Gus Edwards here for the volume. You know, Jordan Addison still shares a little bit of wide receiver time with KJ Osborne. I don't know when he's going to actually take over that number 2 spot, but KJ Osborne he's still getting some wide receiver snaps over Addison. I'm going to do a volume play here and go with Gus Edwards. And I get that maybe the majority here will go Addison because he has looked so good.
What about you, Chris? I'll let you take the.
All right, for me, like I'm actually on the Gus Bus side as well.
My boy.
And I know that it's going to be painstaking watching this game today because Kenyon Drake is only around just to annoy fantasy football players. And so this will be one of those days where, you know, it'll kind of be like where he gets to the goal line and then for some reason, here comes Drake and he gets 2 touchdowns on 7 carries for 8 yards. But I'm hoping that I'm wrong in that aspect. But yeah, Gus, I think he's going to get the volume. He's the guy that they can trust there. And with everything that Kyle just said, like Addison is still sharing time with Osborne. And even though I think that game is going to be a shootout, I just really feel that it's going to be Justin Jefferson to the death today. I think that Cousins is going to like rely on his guy and he's just going to feed him. And like, I'm thinking Jefferson is going to like absolutely explode today.
So Keith, I think that you maybe appear to have a different opinion. Are you under the impression that this, 54 over under might lead to Jordan Addison being the play over Gus?
I mean, he's my favorite DFS play this week on DraftKings at 5,500. And my argument would be if you have him on your team, if you're not going to use them versus the Chargers, when are you going to use them? They're 32nd versus the pass. Mm-hmm. They have given up the most receptions of 20-plus yards through 2 games. And, yeah, I understand, like, week 1, it was Tua. That happens. Week 2, it was, Tannehill and friggin' company. That's not a good sign. Addison, 6 targets in each game, which is a big deal to me. So, like, he is getting looks. And against this Chargers D, who just give up big plays. They've given up the most plays actually of 10 yards or more in the NFL as well in the passing game. And the fact he's got a 39-yard touchdown reception already. He's got a 63-yard touchdown reception. I'm assuming the Chargers are going to do everything they can to slow down Justin Jefferson, which we know you can't. But I would be shocked if Addison doesn't score this week. And I would be shocked if he doesn't have one big play. It's just, is it a 30-yard play? Is it a 60-yard play, et cetera? But I mean, I love, Cousins and Addison as a stack this week on DraftKings. I think that's very fair. Cousins is so much better at home than he is away. And again, that Chargers pass defense, I mean, it's really bad. And then you got to play 2 of the more explosive receivers that we've seen the first 2 weeks in the NFL. Obviously, we know Justin Jefferson, but I mean, Addison has been, getting open and making big plays. I think he, again, scores at least 1 touchdown, has at least 1 big play today.
Gotcha. I have a question. Johnny T wants to know about what's the scoop on Aaron Jones. And I can say that he's had back-to-back limited practices. Hamstring injury is obviously a little concerning. It's one of those things that I trust that he'll play through. Jonathan, do you think that they're going to ease his workload, try to rely on A.J. Dillon, which has been unsuccessful so far on the short season, or do you pivot to someone like Josh Kelly?
Personally, I would pivot to Josh Kelly just because we know that Eckler is out. We know that Josh Kelly is getting that work. And yes, last week was disappointing, but we were talking about the Titans' run defense before. He's not going to play that every week, so I think Kelly is a safer start this week, just because we don't know what that Aaron Jones, if he does play, what that workload is going to be like. Even when he's healthy, if you ever look at Packers Twitter, there are a load of people screaming as to why Aaron Jones still isn't getting the ball more. So yeah, I think I'm going Kelly there.
Yeah.
So, according to Schefter yesterday, they elevated Patrick Taylor from their practice squad. If that kind of tells you anything as far as where Aaron Jones's start-sit situation is going to be this week.
Yeah, that's a very good point. I don't see. I mean, this isn't like a total knock against like AJ Dillon, but even if Aaron Jones is out, I don't know if I want to start AJ Dillon even in a flex.
Yeah,
You
I don't
saw-
want
you saw
to
last
but
It's sad. I hate to say it.
I might have to. We got another question here. Enormous _ papaya, PPR flex Elijah.
So this, I believe, is the underwhelming question of the week. I'm guessing that's Jahan Dotson, underwhelming,
Yeah.
and David Njoku, underwhelming. Chris, which underwhelming PPR flex option do you start? And Enormous Papaya, that is not a knock against the
That's
team.
the Chargers backup running back. I guess it could be him, right?
Yeah, I think it's a backup running back, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's got to be a deep league if that's a.
Oh, you know what? I didn't. Yeah, I apologize. I'm sorry. I should never.
Yeah, there's no comma. Yeah, I totally missed that. I thought it was. I'm with you, Nate. I'm with you.
I just want to make sure. I think that's why he's asking. But yeah, I hope it is a deep league. I would go with Njoku. We know the Titans can't cover, give up a ton of passing yards. He lines up in the slot. That's like a receiver a lot. And who knows what the split's going to be with Kelly Dotson.
Yeah.
Totally agree with that.
Okay, let's go here.
Yeah, and if it is a deep league, I would just reach out and see if Rivercraft is available with Jalen Waddle
great
out.
call.
That might be a better flex spot if he's out there.
You're still in my thunder, man. I've been waiting all week.
We'll get to it. We'll get to
Chris has been
it.
waiting to talk about.
You know what's shit. This is the NFL is when River Craycraft is a.
Oh yeah, see, I didn't even say the name right, did I?
You did not.
It's okay. That's
The
perfect.
Dolphins fan has spoken.
Yeah, no, it's totally
My
fine.
apologies.
Brian wants to know if we think anything with weather going to affect the Buffalo, Washington, or Indianapolis, Baltimore. Much ado about nothing, just some rain by game time, not big wind. I know that I've heard it's a lot of this dissipated. Jorge, you have. Let's go to Jorge with weather.
Yeah, exactly. He's our meteorologist here.
It's
It's
gonna
gonna rain.
I was gonna have that pulled up as an audio drop. Totally forgot to do it this morning. But yeah, so far, in our nation's capital area, it's just raining. Looks to be much of the same to be in the Baltimore, DC area. Not really concerned. I mean, you look at the strengths of all these teams. At least it's been shown the past few weeks is that they all are relying heavily on the running game. Whether it's Buffalo and Jonathan or Josh Allen, it's the ball carrier, or Brian Robinson, who's been balling out the past couple weeks, had a great week last week, as well as the flip side for Indy and Baltimore. We've talked about Gus Edwards a lot, so yeah, much to do about nothing, to be honest with you.
Except for we can't get Zay Flowers this week. And I was just like drooling over the fact that the Colts have given up over 500 yards and 4 touchdowns to receivers in just 2 games. And now I'm like terrified to play them, in DK lineups. I'm even a little worried in some of my stronger teams where I have other receiving options when he was my favorite wide receiver play on Monday, Tuesday. And then that weather news came and it's not looking great for the weather front as of right now.
Yeah, that's one of the things. I still am okay with Zay, not as much as I was. I was really excited going into this week for both passing wide receivers on both sides, and we'll get to that game in just a little bit. Keith, thanks for stopping in with us. I do appreciate it, obviously.
Absolutely. Don't slander Breece Hall, Nate, okay?
Whatever. Dwayne Brown will. Yeah, he's special. The problem with Breece Hall is this. A 4-touch game has now been part of his resume and been part of the resume of Robert Saleh and that offense. I'm not saying it's the norm going forward, but once
I agree with it though, don't you? Like they were getting blown out. He's recovering from an ACL. Why risk like hurting him or putting him in a position to get hurt when you know you're going to need him when you have Zach Wilson at QB?
That is true, but maybe not this week. Let's start next week when the schedule starts getting a little bit easier going forward, which is why we brought Dalvin Cook in. But either way, buddy,
thanks,
thank you
guys.
again.
Keep up the great work. Absolutely, man. Take care, guys.
Good to see you.
That's it.
IDP, Jorge, New Orleans, Green Bay. There's, like we said, the Packers, as Jonathan alluded to, the offensive line is rough. We had written about, and he just signed a big contract extension. Carl Granderson is a good play this week at defensive end. I believe personally that Cameron Jordan is in play. The linebacking core in New Orleans, Demario Davis is about the only one I'm actively. I mean, I like Pete Werner, but I don't know if there's quite enough. The name that I'm intrigued with, and depending upon how much that this matchup goes towards, depending upon Christian Watson, if you're in a cornerback league, Alontae Taylor is one that he just screams situation. He's had him back-to-back games, and I just happenstance. You know how you like tune in? I can't watch every game. I can go back and watch, but I happened to tune in to Green Bay, the New Orleans games the past 2 weeks, and both times Alontae Taylor's almost picked off a pass, broke a route, had it, dropped it. And if there's a situation for this week to happen, it's against Green Bay. Jonathan, close your ears. Jordan Love is not an accurate passer. He is not that great as far as that goes. Very high, uncatchable rate, or turnover worthy rate, I think is the proper way to say it. And in the slot, if the uncatchable targets still preclude him and the off throw passes, the breaking the route to get to it, Alontae Taylor's in line, I think, for one of those maybe potentially good games that we see out of a cornerback. Jorge, who you got on the Green Bay side?
So, I guess I'm getting my signals mixed here a little bit in terms of Green Bay, but is Lucas Van Ness out today? Is he out? Are there any questions with Rashawn Gary or Van Ness?
Van Ness was banged up. So his practice report on the week has been limited practice due to an elbow issue on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. He didn't miss any practices, but it is limited. So it wouldn't shock me entirely to see a reduced role.
Yeah. So I'm a huge fan of Lucas Van Ness. I thought he came out starting week 1. Great. I see a real upside with this pass rush. Rashawn Gary, he's getting worked into more and more snaps there. But let's not overlook Preston Smith. I mean, the guy's been kind of like very consistent. Obviously Devondre Campbell at linebacker, Quay Walker at linebacker. More so Campbell, I feel, than Quay. And then it breaks my heart. I wanted to speak well of a fellow Maryland Terrapin, but Darnell Savage, strong safety, doesn't really do much for me for fantasy purposes. Just doesn't get the tackle volume that I would hope for. So that's all I'm really thinking about for Green Bay in terms of the IDP options. Anybody else I'm forgetting here, Nate?
Nope. I think the Maryland slander was warranted and a good fitting way to end that IDP talk, because we'll go from a game where 42 implied, it could be a decent game, to I think a very intriguing fantasy matchup in the Denver Broncos at the Miami Dolphins. Would have been better if Jalen Waddle was playing, but Chris, I won't hesitate any longer. Let's get right into it. Who would you rather start, Braxton Berrios or River Craycraft?
The thing is, I actually think that both of them will have decent games today. But I think that Berrios will be more reliable. But Craycraft is – I think he's going to have a big game. And it's just because this Denver Broncos defense, so their secondary. So Patrick Surtain, he always trails like the number one receiver for the other team. So Surtain is going to be on Tyreek Hill all day long. All right. So you have Surtain, but Damari Mathis on the other side is rated dead last by PFF for coverage for, defensive backs. 95th out of 95 cornerbacks.
Wow.
Even if you look at their nickel package, Basie, I don't know if that's how you pronounce it, but he is not doing much better. He's pretty bad in the bottom half of that as well. And so what we do know with the Dolphins is that Tua, like, he gets the ball out and he's going to make those reads and everything. So if Surtain is on Tyreek Hill, and if they bracket him by like shading a safety over to his side, that's going to leave that other side of the field wide open. And if you have the worst corner in the NFL, then Craycraft, as we've seen these first two games, Tua throws him the ball sometimes. Like, he's a big target, especially in the red zone. So look for Craycraft to make some plays. But Berrios is also like in that mold of that Wes Welker, Julian Edelman, like, you know, that Patriots guy that just shifty. He's got that juice to him that's getting across. I think he's going to get open, and I think he's going to make a play also. So to answer your question, I'm going to take Craycraft because I think he's going to get in the end zone. But I think Berrios is going to be solid today as well.
Yeah, definitely. Now, are you suggesting that in a multiple flex spot, or is that more of a DFS kind of play?
A DFS kind of play. Because really and truly, I mean, like, let's be honest. If you're seasonal leagues, I really hope that you have somebody better on your team than River Craycraft.
Yeah,
love the guy, but let's be honest.
Let's be real. Let's be real at tight end, which sucks because I don't know how many people are great, but Preston, welcome back, by the way. And Durham Smythe. I know when you came back, you were like, man, I hope he throws a Durham Smythe question my way. Can't wait to hype up Durham Smythe. But I think there's legitimate case to be made. As bad as tight end is, I think that you could do worse than Durham Smythe. Have you looked into Durham Smythe, or is this the first that you even had a question about him so far?
Are you talking to me or Preston?
Preston.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Nobody wants to answer that question.
Nobody does. Exactly.
I was like, and to the next. No,
I want to see. I'm actually intrigued. I was hoping someone was actually going to agree with me and buy into the either DFS and or you're suffering at tight end. But I'll pass on for my Durham Smythe. You just wait till he scores a touchdown. You guys remember this conversation?
I do think that it is something worth kind of monitoring, in the fact that, like, tight end is such a wasteland that just someone getting consistent targets is enough to be interesting to us. So yeah, I think maybe not starting, but at least monitoring going forwards, especially when someone like Waddle is out and targets will need to go somewhere.
I will say it is interesting. You know, you look at his snap percentage the past 2 weeks. Played a full set of snaps week 1, 97% week 2. So he is on the field, and they need to throw to somebody. So
it kind of makes you wonder why they got rid of Gesicki. Because aren't they kind of like the same tight end?
No. They got rid of Gesicki because Gesicki can't block. And in Mike McDaniel's scheme, the tight end has to be able to block. So Gesicki
Right.
He's an offensive freak, and he makes easy catches look really, really hard just by, I don't know why, he's kind of awkward looking, but he couldn't block at all. So Smythe, he is a guy that can get in there, he mix it up, and he can, like, put pads on somebody.
Okay.
Yeah, and protecting Tua is a little decently important, I would think, on the hierarchy of lists. But yeah, at the same time, Gesicki's this freak that we've been talking about for years, and expectations are high. And even in a new situation, he's being overshadowed by Hunter Henry. But then again, so is every other tight end in the league, not really named, even over Kelsey at this point. But let's go to some more viable options. Obviously, like you said, you touched on a very interesting point in Patrick Surtain versus Tyreek Hill. I want to see how Mike McDaniel utilizes Tyreek, and if it's just move them all over, because we saw in week 1, Devontae Adams against Patrick Surtain. Out of the 9 targets he had, 5 of them were with coverage by Surtain, so they moved him around for that, and he could only get exposed away from the PS2 on 4 of his 9 targets. So as much as I love Tyreek, I had a little bit of reservations. Do we think that this is a potential game, another big game for Raheem Mostert, Kyle?
Yeah, I think so. I definitely think so. Because you got Waddle that's out. How successful are they going to be without Jalen Waddle? You talked about how Surtain was going to shadow Hill, and then you got, now I can say his name, River Craycraft. I can say that correctly. Why wouldn't you just play it safe and run the football? Mostert's looked really good so far. Tyreek's a freak. But I've said it before. He'll have those 3 for 30 games. He'll blow up and then have like 3 for 30 games. So maybe they do something a little bit different and they run the football a little bit more than we're thinking here.
I think it's a possibility. I mean, I think that let's talk about the Denver side, because that's going to be the key. The key is game script, of course. Can Denver keep pace with this Miami offense, Chris?
I think they can if Javonte and company runs the football. So, like, the best way to keep Miami from, like, having that track meet on the offensive side of the ball is just keep their defense on the field. And I actually think that Miami has some deficiencies in their run game. So I think Javonte is actually going to have a good game. I think he's going to, like, run it in between the tackles. It will be interesting to see how Miami's defense actually handles that run game, because they were better against the Patriots. Mm-hmm. And Van Ginkel, he came in starting for Phillips, and he had a massive game. So it's going to be interesting to see how he's used. But Long, I think he's better in coverage. And I just really feel that it's going to be one of those games where Sean Payton's going to have his guys try to have not short, but sustained drives with run game and short intermediate passing. So if they can do that, then Miami's not going to be just putting up 30 points this game.
Yeah, you touched on Javonte and Chris Battistel. I filled in for him on 4th and Frames this week. He actually, one of his these are terms in case us old folks don't know. A Bussin player for his week was Javonte Williams, and basically what he alluded to was that how the target per route run was nearly doubling what Samaje Perine has had so far. And this escalation of Javonte's involvement within this offense is, to me, I don't want to say it's one of my biggest misses, because I think that still not believing in a full recovery from a devastating injury like that this fast is bad analysis. I think it's just it's congratulations to Javonte, as well as he's come along, and through 2 games. I know he hasn't had a lot of missed tackles so far, but he's shown burst. The opportunity could be there. Miami is averaging 135 yards on the ground, with the running backs are averaging 135 against them, with 1.5 touchdowns, 5 receptions, 30 yards, 3rd most points allowed to the position. I think Javonte could be a very sneaky play, and it's taken me. I didn't think I would be saying this by week 3. I honestly I was pretty overweight on Samaje Perine as a result of thinking the opposite. Jonathan, Jerry Jeudy looks to be back in the fold now. How long is this the week you see full involvement yet that he takes back over the passing game, or is this still going to be a decent split?
Yeah, I mean, I think it'll still be a decent split just because of the amount of skill position players that they're having to kind of distribute to. I think Sutton still led in targets last week with 7, I believe. Mm-hmm. But the fact that Jeudy came back and immediately saw, I think, back 5 or 6 is a really good indication that he, I think he will become the clear number 1 target as the season progresses. I think someone to really watch out for is Marvin Mims, because I mean we saw those big plays last week. I think as the season progresses, we'll see him become more and more involved as well. But yeah, I mean Wilson did look a lot better last week. I think noted that it was only his second 300-yard game for the Broncos. So which is a really positive sign, given the skill position players. Yeah, but I'm more than happy to start Jeudy today after last week.
Now I'm gonna throw an asterisk real quick, Jorge. Sorry, you go right ahead first. I'll wait.
Yeah, I'm trying to time this and let the universe kind of coincide with this. You mentioned Marvin Mims. It would not surprise me that if Stacey Perez jumps on in 5, 4, 3, 2, 2.5, 1. Nope. But she'll be here.
She said 11, didn't she? She'll be on at 11.
Oh, I thought she said 9. Damn it. Well, there we go. All right. Anyhow, I'm sorry, Nate. Continue, please.
No, I was just unfortunately going to throw some shade on Russ's week 2, because a huge percentage of that week was the Hail Mary that was caught, and it sucks because I really want to. But I have some Russell Wilson. I have more than I thought I would, and I was hoping that it's not just that, but it's not been. It's been much better. When you go from like a 2% touchdown rate last year, just getting back to his norm of 3.5 to 4 is what we want, and which is what we've seen so far. So there are brighter days ahead. Let's see.
Hey, Nate, you know what'll be better for Russ? You know what'll help him out, help him get right? Going against Eli Apple.
That does help everybody.
Oh yeah.
Help everybody.
That will definitely pat them stats.
Man, I wish. If
I
there
could
was,
just say,
how does he still have a job?
That's amazing.
if I could just say one thing about Russell Wilson.
Oh, I thought you were going to defend Eli Apple.
I was about to say, like,
not at all. No. I was trying to jump in to defend my boy Russell Wilson because last week, I talked about being patient with him, and what a game he had. Take the Hail Mary away. Let's just talk facts real quick. 5 touchdown passes throughout the season, 1 interception. That's better than he did last year, the first 2-3 games in. So I think I'm sticking to the train track here, and I'm remaining patient with Russell Wilson.
I believe in Peyton. I believe in Sean Payton.
Me too.
Sean, I believe in him. He's a Hall of Fame coach, and if you remember, Drew Brees was not nothing to smile at before he went over there with Peyton.
And I think it's important to add that he doesn't have a full healthy Jerry Jeudy quite yet. So let's see what happens when Jerry Jeudy comes back at full health.
No doubt. I mean, Jerry Jeudy had 19% target rate last week in his 80% situation, 86% route participation. So I do believe that better days are ahead. I just, I want to temper my own expectations for Russ so I don't internally get too excited. You know how that is. But question from this one, he got to be smart. Great first name, of course, from Nathan. Good morning. Good morning to you. Zay Flowers, Tutu Atwell, Standard League. Shout out Standard Leagues. That is a really tricky. Like, it's like the pros are like, you think that, all right, Baltimore's offense should be much better than the Rams. The Rams have been actually really good. Tutu Atwell had a exceptional season to start. Puka Nakua's health is obviously in a little bit of question. I think he still plays, but do they lean? I mean, this is a touchdown yardage type situation. Who wants to jump on this?
I'll go.
Grenade first. Go for it.
I'll go. I don't feel like it's that difficult for me. In my opinion, it's Zay Flowers. You got Odell Beckham Jr. who's out, so he's going to have to step up. Tutu Atwell's done well, but I'm going to take Zay Flowers in a game that our meteorologist Jorge said that there's not a lot to it. I'm going to take Zay Flowers. He's going to get the targets. Odell Beckham Jr.'s out. I apologize. That game's in Indy, isn't it? Or is it Baltimore?
No, it's Baltimore.
Okay.
Yep.
So with our weather not being a big thing, I'm going to go Zay Flowers with the targets over Tutu Atwell. Anybody disagree?
I'm going to go Tutu Atwell. I think you can't really ignore what's going on there in Los Angeles with these 2 wide receivers. You did mention again, Nakua is dealing with that same oblique injury he had last week. But, when thinking about hyper volume targeting, you're thinking about Puka Nakua. I don't think you're looking at the same hyper volume targeting as you're looking for Atwell, but you may get the big yards per target, yards per reception upside. You'll get more yardage, and that'll definitely help you in standard leagues where you don't have to worry about so much the target volume.
Yeah, and I think if we're banking on a touchdown without Odell Beckham Jr., it's Zay Flowers.
I think that's I can understand that. Standard leagues are hard, dude. They're tough, man, because there's, so many different things in play. It's chaotic. The defensive side of the ball in this Broncos-Miami game, Jorge, can be a little chaotic. We talked earlier about Jalen Phillips and his return, which is huge. A little conversation about like the David Long. I heard that. I worry about David Long just in in general, because he's been shown that only time he really played was when Jalen Phillips was out and they moved Van Ginkel over and they wanted David Long in. So his snap shares don't replicate the necessary amount to get in. But Jorge, who do you like on Denver's side? Because Denver, I find, is an enigma outside of maybe one or two names. No Justin Simmons.
Yeah, no Justin Simmons. I believe those one or two names you're talking about are Josie Jewell and Alex Singleton.
Exactly right.
Right. So outside of those guys that you should be starting in your IDP leagues, no Justin Simmons. What surprises me is Kareem Jackson didn't get a suspension for jumping into Logan Thomas's head and helmet last week. I think he only got like a fine or something.
Mm-hmm.
But that being the case, I mean, Kareem Jackson could be a start there in a pinch as a defensive back 3, or if if you have a 2 DB roster designation, then you're not even starting him. So it's really tough to go out there outside of the whole Josie Jewell and Alex Singleton pairing.
Yeah, and even Alex Singleton saw his snaps scale back a little bit, and with him, efficiency has always been incredible. I just, I think that if there's one, Jonathan Cooper's had an amazing start to the season, but I just don't know if I ever trusted it because I guess, I had to see it to believe it, and I hadn't seen it quite yet. And so that'll be interesting to watch. There's really not too many other names across here. Bradley Chubb is always intriguing because Garrett Bowles has been banged up, but the Jalen Phillips versus Mike McClinchy is the matchup that I want to watch pretty heavily this week. So go ahead.
I was going to say, because if you remember last year in San Francisco, McClinchy, great run blocking, offensive tackle, not great at pass pro. So it's wondering if that trend is going to carry over here in Denver with him this year. So, yeah.
So far it has. So, unless he can right the ship, it ain't looking great. But,
we got a question here from Hal.
Yep.
Superflex, Ryan Tannehill, Zach Wilson, or Kendra Miller. So you can throw Zach Wilson out the door, right? So now it's like, do you want to be super bold or try and go with the low but steady?
Roll them dice.
Roll them dice.
I go ahead and do it because I go ahead and throw Kendra Miller out there because Tannehill ain't gonna do nothing on that defense today.
No.
So why not?
No, yeah, and typically in Superflex, I really want a quarterback, but these are my two options.
Yeah.
In this scenario, I'm gonna go Kendra Miller for the volume because I just those two games there, the Titans, Browns, Jets, Patriots, expected to be low scoring.
Yep.
So I'll go Kendra Miller reluctantly.
If it's a 6-point passing touchdown, I'll probably pivot to Tannehill just because of the 6-point factor of it all. But if it's a 4-point, I probably would lean Kendra Miller, which is, again, NFL, man, week 3. We're already taking Kendra Miller over a damn quarterback in Superflex.
I'm playing Tannehill. I'm not playing Kendra Miller in that matchup. Still, what do you guys expect Kendra Miller to do today? A basic stat line. What do you think he's going to get?
11 for 50, 3 for 28, and maybe – I don't know if I want to do the touchdown or not, but maybe. So, what is that? 11 points? And
you're not thinking Tannehill's going to surpass 11 points?
Well, and that's in 4-point, that's the only reservations I had. But I don't think it's unfair. Tannehill, let's see. He's averaging 11.7 right now on the season.
Oh, maybe I'm giving
that's
too much credit.
I never
know with Tannehill.
And he said it with such conviction too.
Dude, I believe I started. That's why I was silently scrolling, not trying.
I was like, oh God, what does he know that we know?
I was like,
then the defense that they're playing would make me want to play Kendra Miller. The defense that they're playing will make me want to play Kendra over Tannehill.
Yeah, Hal, disregard anything that I just said.
We appreciate your conviction. That was.
I am sorry for the situation, Hal. Let's hope that it's just you have Anthony Richardson as your super flex, and he's out this week, and you'll get him back next week, and you'll be good. Blurpy has a question. He wants to pick 2 in PPR. Jorge, you want me to do it?
Sorry, yeah, go to it. I got it. Sorry, Tyler will be joining us shortly from Italy.
Oh,
yes.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Oh, nice.
Bonjour.
He wants to get on the show.
Yeah.
All right, pick 2 PPR. Garrett Wilson, Rashad White, or James Conner. He says he has Connor and Rashad White in right now since Garrett Wilson is playing the Pats and there's bad weather in the Meadowlands. All right, let me. I understand what you're saying as far as the bad weather in the Meadowlands. I can't do it. Rashad White for me has just completely fallen off my fantasy radar. Like
Really?
I'm waiting for, and Drew from Fourth and Frames will love me for saying this. I am waiting for the Sean Tucker train to leave the station because it's about time. So I would rather roll Wilson and Connor and just say goodbye to Rashad White. But that's me.
I will say I couldn't agree less or couldn't disagree more, however that goes, because I believe Rashad White had nothing. Last week wasn't a good indicator that maybe he's the preferred option there. I mean, I think that the volume has been there and he finally backed it up. But at the same time, I don't want to be ignorant towards you. That's not my intent. I just don't trust James Conner against Dallas. I don't think they're going to have the ball for. I mean, that sounds like a 45 snap game out of Arizona's offense.
And look who we have joining us now, straight from Italy. Tyler, how's it going, man?
Wonderful. You guys are doing a good job. I had to jump on because I haven't been paying attention at all this week, so I need some of your knowledge.
Well, Jorge,
drinking too much wine, huh?
Yes.
I really like how it looks that Tyler's got like one of those like stock images behind him, but that is actually his background.
I know.
Yeah.
What time
That
is
is
it over
very
there
real.
right now, Tyler? What time is it?
4:30.
Oh,
What?
Oh yeah. 6 hours
So when
ahead,
I
man.
texted you this morning to make a trade in the Fantasy and Frames Dynasty League, what time was that for you?
Noon, I think. A little before that.
How about that?
Yeah, you were up well before 6 this morning. I know that.
yes, he was.
Tyler, since you are, I would say I don't know, awake more than others since you've been up a little bit. You might have had a glass. Let's let the vino talk, or 2 or 3. That doesn't mean anything. Who were you in this situation? Garrett Wilson, Rashad White, James Conner. You're choosing 2 in a full point PPR.
You got to take Garrett Wilson. I mean, he's the stud in that group. You got to play him. I guess I'm going to go Rashad White just because, I mean, the Cardinals are kind of hot trash. So I'm going to go Rashad White.
The Cardinals are hot trash, but they're also hot trash against the best defense in football, and it's ugly. But
yeah.
Okay, here you get another one. Tua or Kirk Cousins, and Malcolm has Justin Jefferson as one of his wide receivers. Do you do the stack or do you lean Tua in a matchup against Denver for upside?
I think I'm going to lean Tua even with Jalen Waddle being out. I mean, he's just been playing really well, and that Miami offense is humming.
That's interesting.
That is interesting.
Yeah.
And so Wilson, I think, is a must start for me. Would anybody take the 2 running backs over Wilson plus a running back?
No.
No,
sir.
No.
All right, we got a question from Drew. If you had to drop one before kickoff, who would you drop between Cam Akers, Antonio Gibson, or Devon A-Chain?
Oh, Drew, you know my answer. That hurts.
Is this a dynasty or a redraft?
I think it's probably redraft.
This feels like a Scott Fishbowl question. I don't know, but that could be.
I feel like at this point it
all
has to
three?
be A-Chain, correct?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Like he's the only one of those 3 that's really not getting any love at all. Although I do think as the season continues that he will like get in there and make some action. Oh yeah, if it's a redraft, then yeah, I mean there's no reason to have him right now. He's not going to do anything for you today.
I had to do it, and it pained me because I love what I've seen out of him, and it's just, man, it's frustrating because I love that kid, but yeah, hopefully you can get him back if he, if you need him down the road, maybe catch lightning out of a bottle before he does pop off.
Yep. And because I said that, and with Waddle being out today, watch A-Chain have 9 catches for 125 yards.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's going to happen.
I think that's probably the reason why I probably lean Gibson there. I was really high on Gibson coming into the season, but Brian Robinson is clearly the lead back there. Gibson just isn't seeing touches. So again, that pains me, but I think the fact that A-Chain, we don't know what he is yet, and there is much more potential there. I think I would, just because he could be the waiver wire guy this week. And so I would fear losing him for forever if I dropped him.
I know.
Tyler, got another one for you. Dalton Kincaid or Taysom Hill today?
That's a lineup specific decision. Do you need a big game? Take that shot with Taysom Hill, man. Take that 2 rushing touchdown shot, just because. I mean, it's going to be mostly Kendry Miller, I would assume. Tony Jones is Tony Jones. He's less than a jack.
Sucks.
Thank you.
Yeah, don't hold back, Preston. Let us know how you feel.
We owe you money, Preston?
He's hot garbage.
It
was terrible.
All right. Would you drop let's go around. Let's go to Chris next. Would you drop DJ Moore for Elijah Moore in PPR?
I personally would not, even with all the struggles over there in Chicago. I really feel that Justin Fields coming out this week, basically, saying that it's the coach's fault. I'm thinking that he's going to go out there and he's probably going to buck the system a little bit. But I know that DJ Moore, he appears to be more involved in his team's offense than Elijah Moore is right now. And as crazy as it sounds, and I feel disgusting saying this, I really think I trust Justin Fields more than I do Deshaun Watson at this point.
That is disgusting.
Not too far off. It's nasty, but it's not too far off.
I agree with it. I agree with it. Yeah. I don't know what to think about Justin Fields, because we saw last week that he's only capable of supporting one wide receiver. I think that's a given. And we think that should be DJ Moore. We also know, like I said earlier, about what's in Breece Hall's resume with the 4-touch game. We know a DJ Moore touchless game is in his as well. And it's it's scary to think that's the potential outcome. But I also think that I just don't trust that. I just don't trust the Cleveland offense. And I think that Jerome Ford taking none of the fear from defensive lines or defenses in general away from the passing attack just means they can hyper focus on that area. So let's hope DJ Moore. Poor Hal. He's in such a tough week.
I'll just say one thing. You're talking about dropping DJ Moore for Elijah Moore. You could trade DJ Moore and do better than that.
That's true too.
It's a fair point. All right, what's the next game we got on the docket here, Nate?
Next game we have is the Los Angeles Chargers against the Minnesota Vikings with an over-under of 54. The Los Angeles Chargers, I believe, are going to see a rebound out of Josh Kelly. But Kyle, Josh Kelly, where's he at? Is he firmly as an RB2 for you, or is he more of a flex play?
So he really struggled last week with 13 carries for 39 yards, but that was against that Titans run defense. He's still an RB2 for volume purposes. Austin Eckler's out. It's going to be Joshua Kelly again. You're starting Kelly as an RB2.
There you go. The wide receivers, Keenan Allen, you're starting. Mike Williams, you're starting. Gerald Everett. Has there been a bigger disappointment with Gerald Everett? I mean, he's droppable right now, but any other playmakers on LA that we even want to talk about, Preston?
Yes, there is. Yes, there
Jorge.
is.
Sorry.
Yes.
Shit.
So friend of the show, friend of Fantasy and Frames, Andrew Cooper from Fantasy Alarm. he came on our Dynasty show back in May or June,
Mhm.
and he brought us the name Stone Smart. And we made a bet with him that if Stone Smart was to catch a touchdown this season, he would come back on Dynasty 365 and he would go stone cold Steve Austin crazy and do some shotgunning of beers with us live on air. So we saw Stone Smart make his first catch of the season last week. I think it was for 32 yards. I'm just saying, if you are there is no reason why you should ever be even thinking about starting Stone Smart unless you are I don't even know. I don't even have a creative mind to even think about what you could possibly be using Stone Smart for, maybe in DFS. I don't even know if he's listed in DFS.
He's around 15% of the routes on the season.
I'm just saying.
He has a 1%. Well, he has a 1% target rate. 1%.
I'm trying to wish this into existence, Nate.
Why? Why are you trying to have someone listen to this? You want someone to listen to this and hear 3 hours of football talk, and the one name they listen to when they're driving to Taco Bell to get their breakfast. Sorry for McDonald's breakfast lovers or wherever you're at. Tyler, you're in fucking Italy, so whatever. And they hear Stone Smart and they throw him in and they lose money. F that nonsense.
But if they went, I
you like how I said that? I said fuck like 3 times
advice. Now. I'm just saying it'd be fun to shotgun a beer with Andrew Cooper is what I'm trying to say. So
nope. Hal's with you though. Let's fucking go Stone. Hal.
He is listed on FanDuel for 4,300.
He's probably going to have a better game than Quentin.
If he catches a touchdown this week,
why is 4,300? Holy hell!
I will be insufferable next week if he catches a touchdown.
I don't know if you can see this or not.
I'm just letting you know now.
Put your money where your mouth is. Do a DFS. Do a DFS and put him in your lineup right now. We'll do a head-to-head, you and I.
Where's Keith Fleming when we need him now?
Are you taking Stone Smart or Quentin Johnston?
Stone Smart.
It's smart. Easy work.
Do you want to know the list of? You want to know the list of people that have a lower than Stone Smart target route or target percentage on the season?
Quentin Johnston,
Jorge Edwards, Jonathan Kanowski, Quentin Johnson is another name too. But actually, what is Quentin? Darius Davis has the same basic. At least Quentin Johnson's ran 30% of the routes and has a 20% target per route run. But no, we spent way too much time. So, Jorge, any other people on the Chargers you want to talk about?
No, there is not anybody that I would want to start.
You're sure it's not Elijah Dotson or Isaiah Spiller or nothing? Okay, we can move on to the Minnesota side of the ball. This is where, we had these conversations earlier. The wide receiver spot is interesting because we know that Jordan Addison's not getting full complement of snaps yet, but it's Justin Jefferson. Is KJ Osborne or Jordan Addison this week? I know that's a crazy conversation, but what do you think?
Jordan Addison.
I think so too.
I know KJ Osborne's playing more snaps, but I would say I haven't done the research to figure out the exact number, but I would say Jordan Addison is in there for damn near as many pass snaps as KJ Osborne is. Not as many, but he's in there when they're throwing the ball. KJ Osborne's in there when they're running the ball and throwing.
The target rate is the same. Targets per route run leans Jordan Addison's side by about 2%, 16 versus 14. But I'm right there with Jordan Addison. I have a hard time starting Osborne despite the 95% route participation. But what are we doing at running back going forward? Does anybody want any piece of this running back backfield whatsoever? Somebody does. Preston, you do?
I do.
Lunatic. Crazy.
I love the Akers pickup. I love it. I think my man just needed. I'm a big Akers guy. I believe in the talent. I believe that guy needed a change of scenery. A lot of times that fixes things, and I'm not a big fan of Madison. I believe he in fantasy circles, he was going like round. People were drafting him in round 3 and 4.
They're idiots.
I'm like, wow, he's really going that high. I'm all about Akers. Akers, he's with his old offensive coordinator. I believe he'll have that job within 3 weeks. 60-40 split. 60-40 split.
I hope it's more than that because Madison, I don't think Madison should have that 40%, but that's also my anti-Madison hate or takes coming through. It's real football. Sometimes I have to think about more so than fantasy, and a real football take is for them to actually involve both running backs at what they do well and allow the fresh legs and everything else. We haven't seen anybody run the ball great in Minnesota yet so far.
Until today.
Today's the day. Who's doing it today?
It's got to be Madison, right? I don't think Akers is active, is he?
No, I don't think. Yeah. Oh no.
Oh, Akers. I believe he's. I think he's active.
Oh, okay. I didn't think he was.
I think. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, I think Akers is active, but Kareem Hunt is not.
Okay.
I believe.
Gross.
No, I thought I heard yesterday. I think Kareem Hunt was active too.
Okay.
Really?
Thank you, Preston.
I'm not sure. I'll find out for sure.
But one thing you could say about Madison, Nate, is he knows he's on the hot seat right now. You gonna bench him?
Am I?
Yeah.
Well,
I'm interested to see if we can get some Alexander Madison questions and see who Nate would take over Madison.
I'll start running through the list after we get through
the
IDP side of this game because I do want to say I think TJ Hawkinson, I love the play. I hate the matchup against Derwin James and company, but you're never going to not start TJ Hawkinson. So no point in even throwing that into the atmosphere because what's the point other than when if you're doing rankings and you want to move him down 2 or 3 spots, whatever. But no one's asking that today. Jorge, people are asking who you start on the Los Angeles Chargers and/or Minnesota Vikings. Take your pick.
Let me go to the Vikings because there are 3 players actually I'm really excited for the Vikings for IDP. One of which you and I we've talked about a lot in the offseason, and we're seeing it come into fruition this season so far, and that's Ivan Pace Jr. That's out of the University of Cincinnati. I believe he was he undrafted or was
undrafted?
He was undrafted.
Yep.
We worked his way up now to the starting middle linebacking role based off of snap, or at least based off of snap percentage last week. He was the lead linebacker. So, we're seeing the tackle efficiency there. We're seeing him on the field in first and second down situations, kind of in week 2 versus Philadelphia. Wasn't there a lot on third down, which is a little concerning. You kind of want to have your linebackers be, all your players, offense or defense, be on the field as much as possible. That notwithstanding, I think it's just a matter of him working his way into the rotation longer, liking the tackle floor with him. The next one is Cameron Bynum, who he's kind of just usurped the IDP relevance away from Harrison Smith to a certain degree. But, another player that people should not be disregarding is Josh Metellus. Outside of being out for a few snaps last week against Philadelphia due to injury, in terms of box snap percentage, he was right there close to the line of scrimmage also. So I think all 3 of these guys have potential upside there. If I had to rank the order of which I would put them in IDP importance, it'd be Pace, Bynum, Metellus, but don't sleep on Josh Metellus. I think he's climbing up and is going to be right on par there, if not surpassing Bynum at some point during the season if things progress like they have been.
Yeah, no, I do like Metellus. He's in my DB3 conversation this week, so very, very underrated. And then when he came back from that injury, it was very relieving because I thought it looked worse than it actually was. So that's always a positive. Some of the negatives for the Chargers are that Eric Kendricks is out. Joey Bosa had been battling a hamstring injury all week, limited in practice all week, which has me a little concerned with Joey Bosa's history of injury. Khalil Mack is Khalil Mack. I can't really recommend starting him every week. I think the matchup isn't ideal. Here's a sleeper linebacker that could see plenty of tackles. I don't love it because I don't like the player, is Kenneth Murray. But I think that, I know exactly. But I think he's going to be on the field 100% of the time. I hate that for the Chargers. I love that for the Vikings. But, oh, God, that might lean into maybe Alexander Madison having more than 30 yards this week. Oh, shit. What is happening? Oh, no. I've turned the corner. It's Alexander Madison week. Watch out.
Pump him up on your rankings, Nate.
Eight for 32. 8 for 32.
I love when Nate sees a good opportunity for a player he hates. It happened twice.
Damn it.
Don't worry. It's getting all out there. But, yeah, Derwin James is obviously a must start. But it's not real happy fields in in the Chargers IDP realm. So that's that. Let's bust through this next game. Preston, I know this one's near and dear to your heart. The New England Patriots at the New York Jets. Over under of 35.5. I think that that's ugly. That's a game you're going to have to watch it, unfortunately, probably, huh?
Yeah.
I'm going to choose to probably not have it on my television. But what
it's going to be a slugfest.
Yep.
Slugfest.
That is the only right way to describe that game. That's
slugfest.
Like the slow slug, like where it's gross and leaving that shitty trail behind it, is what that type of slug.
It's going to be an ugly one.
Yeah.
I really we need some explosiveness on offense. Sometimes Belichick makes me so mad because he benched our explosiveness last game against y'all in Demario Douglas. I like Demario Douglas, and I think he's the spark we needed, but they benched him.
He couldn't hold on to the ball. Couldn't hold on.
Man. Anybody would have coughed that up, man.
Why are you antagonizing him, Chris? Don't get Preston all riled up. Come on, man.
Yeah, but I hope he puts him back out there so we can have some kind of explosiveness to our offense. But this is going to be a ugly slugfest between both teams. I'm not playing anybody in my leagues.
I think I gotta say, man, I think Demario Douglas is an excellent call from an aspect of someone that can take the reins and actually go through. Because when on the field, like you said, he might only run 30% of the routes, but on those routes that he runs, he's targeted 30% of the time.
Yeah.
Mac Jones with this new offense, I'm not as hesitant to even look at a wide receiver. I don't want to look at multiple. I don't want to consider this outlier huge games, but I also don't know exactly if I want to see where they line up Demario Douglas to best utilize. So an 8 out of 9, 9-11. That's maybe I should say that 9.11. I need to pick and choose how I use those decimals. And not the best. That's important. Right. But Ramondre against this Jets D, you want to be cute and think, but Ramondre Stevenson's still stud. Jonathan, are you even concerned about Ramondre against the Jets defense, or is it fair to say it's still the Jets D?
I'm not concerned that much, just because he is seeing the vast majority of the work back there. Zeke isn't really eating into it as much as some people thought. So no, I don't really have any concerns around Ramondre. He's you can clearly see that he is just a better back at this stage.
Yeah, we Hunter Henry has been the tight end 2, I believe, on the season so far. That's been
another one.
That's another one. We've seen this for years that New England can harbor and utilize the tight end position until somehow something that's worked for 20 years in New England, Matt Patricia can fuck up like a wet dream, come in and screw up 2 viable tight ends. And this year, luckily, Bill O'Brien says, hey, we're going to get him involved, let Mac ease into it. But does Gesicki even play into the equation whatsoever? Or are we just strictly stick with Hunter Henry? No one's on Gesicki, no? Okay.
I think you'll see him at the end of the season. You'll see more of him between mid to the end of the season. But as far as this game goes, yeah, Hunter Henry.
Yeah.
Jorge, you don't.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No. I was just making sure Jorge didn't have any tight ends that play 1% of the snaps in New England that we wants to talk about.
I swear to God, if he catches a touchdown this week,
Pharaoh Brown, maybe.
I'm going to be insufferable next week, Nate. No Pharaoh Brown. No, it's Hunter Henry for me for the Patriots.
Yeah, I mean, it's either Ramondre for me and Patriots defense. Can you think of anyone else on the Patriots that you could start?
No.
Targets are just distributed sort of too sparsely between people that the upside just isn't there, especially with this matchup. Hunter Henry is I think is sort of locked in tight end one going forward until we see otherwise. But yeah, other than that, I don't have any faith in anyone else.
I think it's ironic that, a lot of the talk about Zeke being a touchdown vulture, and yet on the season, he hasn't had a touch inside the 5 yet. Now that can change on a dime, but I'm out. All right. Now we're getting to brass tacks. Here's a tight end question. Cade Otton, Tyler Higbee.
Higbee.
Otton.
We'll keep going. Just
Higbee.
So 2 for Higbee, 1 for Otton. Jonathan?
Otton, I think.
Oh my God, we're really having this discussion. This is amazing.
Kyle? Yeah, the tiebreaker.
Higbee.
Higbee it is.
Higbee. Yeah.
Tyler Higbee.
Wow. I feel so gross just going around the frames having this be a thing. This is
I feel gross that
steel wool so I can scrub it off. This is...
2 weeks ago, I wouldn't have even listened to that. It would have been Higbee. I wouldn't have even taken a vote. It would have just been Tyler Higbee. But he has been the only positive he has is he's on the field. He's running 84% of the routes, and he's an option if Puka's banged up and we don't see Tutu and not Van Jefferson. I don't know. I don't know why Higbee's been so bad as a result, but maybe it'll change this week. I don't know.
The moment you bench him, bench him.
Mm-hmm.
I've been burned by Higbee too many times. I have personal feelings against Higbee.
Yep.
That's the Baker's dozen. The Baker's dozen. You remember that, Jorge? Stacy was getting. She was rattling up on the Buccaneers, saying how trash they were, and here we are now, 2-0. Oh, look how convenient! Baker's dozen.
I feel like I need to send a personal apology to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense and tell them how sorry I am for saying that they sucked a few weeks ago. Sorry guys.
Stacey, the post office will go on strike if everybody sent a letter that needed to be sent to Tampa Bay for saying how they were going to suck. It would pretty much be the entire everywhere but maybe the greater Tampa Bay area, which even there probably would be the same.
I swear, Stacy times her entrance like amazingly well. Every week. Perfect timing.
Yes. See, I'm fashionably late this morning.
Well, perfect, Stacy. Dalton Kincaid or David Njoku?
Oh, Kincaid.
Oh,
well, hang on. Hold on. How's Jorge? What's the weather like in your neck of the
woods? Just it's not really windy, just a few drizzles here and there.
Okay.
There would be some light rain, but that's about it. Nothing too crazy.
Okay. All right. In that case, I'm still going to go with Kincaid. I was worried about the weather on the East Coast this weekend for those 3 games. So that was kind of something that I was monitoring with all my players and that were going to be affected potentially. Like being from Florida, I know kind of how hurricanes work and tropical storms and that kind of thing, like pretty familiar with those. So if it was going to be really windy and a lot of rain, I was kind of trying to stay away. But if it looks like it's cleared up, then all aboard the Dalton Kincaid train for sure.
There we go.
Yeah, maybe the one passing matchup that's not ideal against Tennessee's David Njoku, which I don't hate, but if there's 2 positions, they brought back Monty Hooker or he's healthy again, and Kevin Byard. So maybe there's something to be said there. Let's talk about the defensive side since there's not many. Actually, you know what? There are some offensive people still to talk about on the Jets side, or maybe person. We talked about Garrett Wilson earlier. I feel like he's not. No one's happy now. All the fun of Garrett Wilson is gone. sucks. I was so hopeful. I mean, I know that he's a big play waiting to happen. Unfortunately, big play and Zach Wilson go together like peanut butter and sauerkraut. So that's where David Abraham would jump in. He'd be like, I don't know how to do an Australian voice, but imagine him saying that my analogies suck and do it in your head. So Brees Hall is Keith Fleming's like play of the week as far as DFS. Do you guys agree with that or disagree? I'm not certain I want to start any Jets players, maybe not named Garrett Wilson.
Not against his defense. That's not a homer talking, but we let Mostert get away. I'm salty about that game. I'm sorry. we let Mostert get away a few times, but that won't happen again. Not with Brees. So I'm not feeling that.
I'm not feeling Conklin, any other wide. I don't really love too many of the options in that game whatsoever. Defensively, if we're going to talk IDP, I guess there's upside plays. Matthew Judon is always in play when it comes to IDP. The Jets' offensive lines without Dwayne Brown, they're missing some pieces across, so it could line up for a good Matthew Judon game. It's Jawan Bentley, the linebackers. I just don't know. I don't know what the Jets are going to do offensively. And I hate not having a grasp on that because that's like, if I knew everything was going to funnel towards the middle, which I think it probably will, then Bentley I'm okay with. Josh Uche is a good per snap pass rusher. So I'm fine with that. Kyle Duggar has had a rough season to start, but I think that he'll be up in the box and should see a decent game as a whole. On the Jet side, Quinnen Williams at defensive tackle is always, especially in defensive tackle plays, you're going to start him. CJ Mosley is a must-start linebacker for me. Quincy Williams at linebacker is the other intriguing one. He's amongst the league leader in solo tackles. So, the possibilities there for tackle. You're not going to get much more out of him, but the tackle volume could be there, especially in tackle-heavy leagues. And Jordan Whitehead proved me wrong last week. I thought he'd have a down game. He had a good game tackle-wise. Didn't have the 3 interceptions, but he won't do that. This week against, I think, a run-heavy New England team, if they can, will prove to be a DB2 game for Jordan Whitehead. So it's sorry for the lack of enthusiasm there, guys, for the IDP options. Stacy, you come into this and we break you down immediately by talking about the Patriots and the Jets. We like to go from that straight into the Buffalo Bills and Washington Commanders. Another banger of a game. These early slates are a mix of blah and some upside there.
Even more blah.
But so the weather is not as bad as Jorge said. He said it's not as blustery. So I'm a little more optimistic in some of these pass catchers. Stacy, let's talk about Washington because the Jahan Dotson love that I had going into the season has been tempered at best. Is there reason for optimism going into this week against Buffalo?
There is. And if you give me 2 seconds, I'm going to try to pull up the numbers, but I looked this up a little bit earlier in the week. And Jahan Dotson, let's find it. There you go. He's leading their team in targets right now. So I too was a big Jahan Dotson fan, going into the season, really had high hopes, high expectations for him coming into this year. And I still think that it's don't give up on him yet. I know it hasn't been great. I heard a stat earlier earlier this week saying basically nobody on that team has made it over 50 yards receiving. So not good things, but I think there is still hope, right? Mm-hmm. We're going into week 3. So it's not like we're at week 16 here.
Right.
It's been terrible. So I tend to think, this has been a question for me today because I have Dotson in a lot of places. And I was kind of thinking, okay, what circumstances would lead me to take him out of my lineup? And the weather was the biggest one. And if it seems like it's going to be okay over there, I'm going to throw him back in my lineup. Like I said, he's leading their team in targets right now ahead of McLaurin. I think that they're still going to be going to him. They're still going to bring him in, get him, opportunities. So I think it's a little too early to give up. It's just kind of one of those things. Buffalo, has a good defense, right? Mm-hmm. So, you might have to temper expectations a little bit today. But it just, long term looking ahead, I don't think there's any reason to give up on him just yet.
Yeah, and I'm right there with you too. I hate to say I've given up on Antonio Gibson, but I think that I have to. We talked earlier about that it's pretty much non-existent before the 2-minute drill. If there's a 2-minute drill, and with Washington, Jorge, they always have a 2-minute drill because they probably will be trailing in some of these games, especially against Buffalo. But Brian Robinson's a must start. Tight end, we have talked too much about tight end. I'm going to give a shout out to Jorge so that he knows that I'm at least optimistic for him. His Cole Turner love will come to fruition this week, and Cole Turner will have 3 catches for 24 yards. Jorge, there you go. A little bit better than Stone, but not by much. Buffalo side, though, against, I don't think it's a great Washington defense. Cameron Curl is a questionable, didn't practice Friday, might not play. Chris, Gabe Davis is probably the most polarizing name, I would say, on that offense. We know we're starting Josh Allen. We know we're starting James Cook. We know we're starting Stephon Diggs. The tight ends are mix and match depending upon who wants to score that given week. But what are we doing with Gabe Davis this week?
So with Gabe Davis, you got to think, let's see, how long has it been since his last blow-up game? At one of every 5 games, he's going to go off and he's going to get you a couple touchdowns. So this is a Gabe Davis day. Gabe is going to go in there and he's going to have a decent game. I really believe. Diggs is going to do his thing, like you already said. But just looking at that Commanders defense, I mean, Josh Dobbs came in there and he was looking like he is a Pro Bowler, like he was just carving him up in that second half coming back. So I really feel that I really think that the Bills are going to come out there and they're just going to open it up a little bit. And I think Gabe's going to be a beneficiary of it. I don't really have any discernible reasoning other than just every 5 games he blows up.
That's all you need. You don't need any more than that. You don't have to have evidence. Evidence proves nothing. Gabe Davis could have the best matchup in the world and he's going 2 for 13. He could have the worst matchup in the world and it's 2 for 113. But let's not get carried away. But it's the touchdowns. It's and everything. Billy Mustafa, when you listen to this was we win and we lose because I said Gabe Davis was trash last year and he still finishes the wide receiver 34, 38, somewhere around there. So not trash where he was drafted. Yes. But that's the upside with the Bills offense is over the course of the season, every 5 games, like you said, Chris, that equates to about 3 huge games, which supports this wide receiver 3 narrative. But given week in and week out, it's challenging and it's a dangerous game of chess to play with him. Like, where's the cutoff? And I know we could look at our rankings and all, but that's like, do you want to start Jahan Dotson or Gabe Davis? Stacy?
Sorry, I had muted myself.
That's okay.
I still think I'm going to go with Dotson just because with Gabe Dave, there's still so many more options available on Buffalo.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously you've got Stephon Diggs, you've got, now Kincaid, you've still got Knox. Don't forget about, James Cook, Damian Harris back there too. I think they have fewer options on Washington. So I think, especially with Dotson, they're, kind of taking the command of that target share. I still think I'm going to go with Dotson if I've got to choose between those two. But it's probably pretty close.
I agree with that.
Surprisingly enough, not to cut you off, I didn't look at this. I have Gabe Davis at 36 and Dotson at 37 on the week so far. So,
Nate, let me ask you this.
Yeah.
So Tre'Davious White, he traditionally shadows the best receiver, like on the other team. So is that McLaurin or is that Dotson? Because if he's shadowing McLaurin, then that means Christian Benford is going to be on, Dotson. And Benford, I made a lot of money off him last year in DFS.
Mm-hmm.
So, so I don't have a whole lot of faith in Benford. So I'm all over Dotson this week.
Yeah. And that's the challenge is like, if we go to last week and we look at Tre'Davious White, he did okay against Devontae Adams. And I don't want to say okay. I mean, he had the 4 targets. He allowed 3 receptions, but for 28 yards. So it wasn't like he had this huge. People just don't typically throw his way all that offense, especially on a Raiders team. That matchup and that situation was just so bad. It was it wasn't indicative. And week 1 was unfair to assume because unfortunately it was a Zach Wilson led offense for the most part. But yeah, to answer the question, who's number 1? I don't know that. I think it's got to be McLaurin, just as a result of if I'm the offensive or defensive coordinator who I guess predicting or trying to play. That's a tough one. Yeah. Scheme. Thank you. That's the right word. That is exactly right. So let's I guess move on to the defensive side real quick. I'll jump through these guys just so that we can move on get at least through all the games before they start. I get long-winded with these, and I want to spend as much time with you guys as possible, so I apologize. On the Buffalo side, defensively there's not a ton of IDP options. I mean, I think that there's sneaky play in Gregory Rousseau this week against a Washington right side that's a little weak, and Wiley and Cosme. At linebacker, Matt Milano is always up there in consideration. Terrell Bernard has gotten more snaps as of late, and Jordan Poyer is a sneaky play, just again, because I think that Washington's, if the weather is better, maybe they spread the field a little bit more, but most likely up in the box enough to see relevance. And then on the Washington side, like I say, Cam Curl's probably a game time decision. He didn't practice yesterday. I haven't heard anything more in that case. Cody Barton's on the field enough to be an LB 2-3. And then I want to see what Chase Young has in his rebound week. I'm not a buyer. I don't know if you guys are buyers in Chase Young or not, but I proved me right and stay on the field for multiple weeks along with Montez Sweat. And if you have a defensive tackle league, Jonathan Allen's always a must start there. So that's the Bills in Washington. This next game, and I'm going to surprise maybe you guys, I think this is the highest scoring game of the day. Texans and Jacksonville. Is that a crazy thought? I see some head nods. I don't know if that's a positive head nod or not, but you guys, is it too spicy for this early, or is that not spicy enough?
No, not at all. That's legit right there. Texans gonna be playing behind. They trust CJ Stroud to launch that ball, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, and Trevor Lawrence and that offense, they're gonna have a bounce back game. They're gonna tear the Texans apart, but the Texans are gonna keep fighting.
I like it. So let's get to this question. Jay wants to know Puka or Breece Hall in the flex. Kyle?
Puka.
Jonathan?
Yeah, I'm going Puka. I don't worry too much about that injury. I think he'll still get that high target share that we've seen the last couple of weeks.
Stacy?
Puka, all the way.
Chris?
Gotta go Puka.
And Preston?
Puka all day. When we're gonna put him? After this week, can we put him in the WR2 spot now? After this week, after he gives us the same production,
if he gives
we're not talking about him. Yeah. We're not talking about him as a flex option anymore.
I don't know what else he has to do.
Yeah, after this, no more flex.
As long as Matthew Stafford. Time
out.
Okay.
There is a guy named Cooper Kupp that's going to return.
Who?
Cooper
yeah, exactly. Exactly.
He's going to return.
I will say that exerted just 99% like optimism that he's going to return. I'm turning that down just a little bit. It's like, it's a little too loud. I'm going to turn it down to 64. I don't want that. I don't want to blow my speakers yet. So I'll turn
Where's
that down.
Drew at when we need him? We need Drew to come in here.
Drew's still invited to breakfast. He's not even invited to breakfast anymore, is he?
Yeah, Puka's going to breakfast now, ain't he?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, they have.
Mm-hmm.
And Puka found the secret. Get Matthew Stafford on some mimosas, keeps him loose so he doesn't hurt himself. Because they say that, that reduces injury. I don't know about drinking reduces injury. I'm not a doctor, but might be a doctor. That sounds pretty legit. So the Texans Jags, let's start with you, Jonathan. We talked about CJ Stroud. Preston gave exactly what I was thinking. The question though now is Tank Dell, does he evolve into this week as a wide receiver 3? I think is probably the ceiling for me as what I would expect. Expectations higher or lower?
I think that's possibly a little bit too high for Tank Dell. I think Nico Collins is someone that I'm really, really interested in. I think what has been really interesting is how pass heavy that team has been. They have had some O-line issues. I think so. They've just been really struggling to run the ball. Damian Pierce hasn't quite looked. He hasn't been putting up the numbers that we saw last year, and they have kind of let CJ Stroud do his thing, and it's really good to see that he has immediately he has been really impressive so far. I think he's a decent streaming option in a game that should hopefully be quite high scoring. But yeah, to answer your question, I think wide receiver 3 for Tank Dell is maybe a little bit too much, but I think we could certainly see it kind of further down the road.
Joe Preston, as far as like a flex play, and the reason I phrased it with Tank Dell is because I have Nico in as a wide receiver 2 this week with really high upside. Obviously, if my implied high point total for the week, but both or neither is a flex play for you this week.
You can put. I don't have Nico quite yet as a WR2, but you can flex both of them. Both of them are flex worthy.
Yeah.
Tank Dell once Noah Brown went down for some reason, they kept putting Noah Brown on the field, trotting Noah Brown on the field. And now he went down last week, and that's when Tank Dell fired up.
I'm surprised that we're not given that I don't give Robert Woods enough love. I mean, he runs the most routes.
I love Bobby Trees.
He's second on the team in targets, and he's second in air yard percentage. It's like, Stacy, is it that Robert Woods isn't as fun as Nico and Tank? I mean, I hate to say fun, but I think that always builds into our narrative. It's like, boring. I'm not calling Bobby Trees boring, but I guess I'm calling Bobby Trees boring.
Maybe a little bit. I before the season, I was saying, like the ghost of Robert Woods, right? And now I kind of feel bad. I was like, he's Weekend at Bernie style, with like Nico and Tank out there carrying him around the field. But he has surprisingly done, a lot more than I think anybody expected. But I'm a huge Tank Dell fan. So, if you have both those guys, I'm looking at their numbers right now. I don't see any reason why you don't throw them in, the flex spot at all if you have those. And, Stroud, like we were talking about, he's got 626 passing yards right now. And, that's taking he's fifth in yards right now overall. That's not like rookies, that's overall in the NFL. Mm-hmm. So I think that's really impressive. Him coming in as a rookie and doing that, especially in Houston where nobody expected too much, first year. So if you've got either one of those guys, I say throw them in. I'm looking at the numbers here. I mean, the targets, there's a little, Robert Woods has got a few more than Tank Dell. We're talking about maybe 5 there, and they're not really separated that much by yardage. Robert Woods has got 131 yards. Dell's got 106. I think those guys are both viable flexes. Either one, whichever is your preference. Like I said, I'm a Tank Dell kind of girl. Really love that connection that he and Stroud have. I mean, that's a guy that Stroud lobbied for, in the draft for them to go get him, and they did. I think they've got kind of that shall we say Puka and Stafford connection going on.
Oh, mimosas in the morning.
That's right, mimosas in the morning. That's going to be we should make that a new segment here on Fantasy and Friends.
I like it. Oh, I have been making that a segment. You guys just don't know. It's vodka in my coffee. Brought to you by Fantasy and Frames. So
we don't know what's in there.
No, it's coffee. Actually, I can't. After last week's debacle of my hungoverness, I vowed to be straightforward and clear, and now I have to talk. So I want to get to this question real quick because this is ironic. Eddie Brito at the. Oh, I'm sorry. Let's get to this one first. Austin Craycraft or Mims as a gross wide receiver 3. Stacy shakes her head that he called or she called Mims a gross wide receiver 3. But Preston, yep. I want you, since you I think who led the Craycraft charge? Was it you or Chris?
Me.
I think that was Chris. Checking. That was Chris.
Well, I thought so. I just wanted to make sure. All the boxes got moved around now, and I remember, and I'm bouncing back and forth. There you go. Thank you. Now we're good.
Well, we got the Dolphins fan and the Patriots fan. You can't confuse the two. They get very sensitive about that. So,
Well, I also don't have the screen up all the time. I'm using my show sheet, and so I'm bouncing back and forth. I'm trying to. It's chaos. This is
I'm drawing a
shit for the
blank. Do you know
birds.
which Austin we're talking about?
I'm presuming he means
That's
Calvin,
Calvin
Austin.
It's Calvin,
Oh,
and I'll tell you guys how to go. Jim is
I
fantasy
said
football.
Tavon Austin.
Oh,
That's what I was
I'm
thinking in my
kidding.
head.
I'm kidding.
No,
I'm joking.
Yes. That is horrible. I was thinking Stone Cold Steve Austin. That's right.
that might be a better option.
But if I'm picking between these three guys for my gross wide receiver 3, my order is Mims, Craycraft, and then Austin.
Perfect. Anybody have a different order that's, emphatic?
Austin, Mims, and Craycraft.
That's just Patriot hate right there.
Nah. I knew somebody was gonna say that.
So go down this one here. So this is the one I was talking about because I just in our Fantasy of Frames league, if you notice, I have this same decision, and I put CJ Stroud in over Justin Fields this week. Crazy, spicy, just right.
Not a bad move. I like it.
I mean, one thing you could say is CJ Stroud's thrown the ball 91 times in 2 games, and he hasn't thrown an interception. But
shit, why'd you say that for?
I just
might as well have said no hitter. Yep, he's throwing a no hitter.
We're getting
this perfect game.
Has Fields thrown it 91 times in his career?
Yeah,
that's a good question. That's great, actually. So I am on Stroud, but let's get to the Jacksonville side because I think this is the side that really propels both this game as being such high scoring because Houston's without the following: Denzel Perryman, so they're starting linebacker; Derek Stingley, they're starting corner; Jalen Petrie, they're starting safety; and Tevier Thomas, their other starting corner. Now, I don't know much about much, but I'm thinking that if I'm the Jacksonville Jaguars, whichever way it is, Jaguars is I'm going to air out against this Houston team. So the question is, we'll go around the frames, Calvin Ridley or Christian Kirk this week? Kyle? Calvin Ridley.
Okay. Jonathan?
Calvin Ridley.
Stacy?
Ridley.
Chris?
I'm going to be contrarian and say Kirk.
There you go. Preston?
Ridley.
Jorge?
Ridley.
Ridley. The politician speaks.
Exactly.
I'll take. Yep. Tavon Austin for the win.
Stone Cold.
Tavon Austin. Yeah, I love that. Evan Ingram, I think, is in play. Is Tank Bigsby really going to cut into ETN's work this week at all? I mean, does anybody really think that's going to be a thing?
No, I think Tank, you're with him. There was so much hype coming out of the preseason. I just feel like this is a down in the season stretch type of play where you start to see his usage go up a little bit more to the point where you can consider him a flex option, but not at this point right now.
Yeah. Like I said, Jorge, on the IDP side, we have with Denzel Perryman out. I think that Henry To'oTo'o is an interesting play. Alabama ties has looked really good with his snap percentage that when he's on the field, he's making plays. Who else across this game do you want a piece of?
I mean, Will Anderson, if he's available, I'd want him on there. Jonathan Grenard. So both of them are defensive ends for the Texans. You mentioned Henry To'oTo'o. No Jalen Petrie this week, so I'm there's nobody in the secondary I'm really jumping out to get. On the flip side, Foyce Aluakun, Josh Allen, aka the real Josh Allen, like we like to say here. Tavon Walker?
Trayvon, maybe. Trayvon? I mean, he's if you got to find a spot to take advantage of, it's a Houston offensive line that House says here. I mean, they're ever going to be healthy? Probably not. I mean, they haven't been healthy yet. So, yeah, I think all pass rushing aspects for both teams could be in play, especially for what we expect to be, I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if we see 80 pass attempts in this game. I mean, I think that's a pretty safe number. I don't know about safe.
Got a question here. Dalton Schultz or Musgrave? Also, is the Houston O-line ever going to be healthy this year? Let's go in reverse order. No. And then I'm going to roll with Musgrave.
Stacy?
Yeah, Musgrave, I think for sure on here. Yeah, and that's probably my Packer bias.
Nice.
You have a Packer bias? I didn't realize. I didn't
Smidge.
realize you and Chris would be representing your team so well. This is good.
That's right.
Got a
Carrie
question
brought
here
me
from-
coffee. Nice of her.
Aw, say hi to Carrie for us.
Hi, Carrie.
There she is. Hey, Carrie.
Yay.
Carrie says hi.
So Les is here. Les, you should be with us. I thought you were going to be in studio with us this morning. You got Johan Dotson or Bobby Trees, half PPR. Give me Dotson. And yes, my commander's bias is in full effect here. So.
I'll take Dotson too.
Dotson.
I think
Perfect.
so.
All right, clean sweep. Let's get to the Colts and Baltimore game. As we talked about, the weather's not going to be as impactful. Indianapolis Colts without Anthony Richardson really sucks, but I mean, Jorge, I know you're Minshew mania. I'm just waiting for you to talk about it. Are you going to?
It was a bold predictions episode from 2 years ago where I said that in week 8, Jalen Hurts would be benched for Gardner Minshew in Philadelphia. It was a bold predictions episode, and ever since there 2 years ago, I have not heard the last of it. But let's please continue.
Do you like Gardner Minshew this week?
I do like Gardner Minshew this week.
Oh, my God. Move on. All right. Let's all right. Zach Moss against Baltimore. Is Zach Moss a flex running back 2? No one has him as an RB1, correct? Please say God no.
No.
Who's the highest on Zach Moss? Who? Show of hands. Who has him as a flex? Nobody.
I do.
RB1.
Yeah, I would.
Okay. RB2.
Yes.
If you're desperate, yeah.
Okay.
But not an RB1.
He's a flex. He's
Flex no higher for me.
Yeah,
No higher.
he's 27 for me. And that's where I'll keep him. So
Okay. All right. I'm cool with that. So then the real impact is going to be on Michael Pittman. Michael Pittman, actually, I think that there was a lot of concerns like preseason early on. Sky was sky's limit for Pittman. And then as we got closer and all the Anthony Richardson hate and concern, Pittman started dropping in drafts. And now we see 36% air yard, 32% target rate. It's a really good start to the season for Pittman. How bad does Minshew affect this, or does he, Chris?
I don't think Minshew's gonna dolish on much at all this week, to be honest with you. I actually think Pittman's gonna have a solid game.
Nice. Is anybody else, Preston, gonna have a solid game? Will it be Alec Pierce?
Mike was off. Alec Pierce might catch him one, might get in his end zone this week. I like Alec Pierce.
If there's an area to attack on Baltimore, it's their secondary. They're without 3 key pieces. Catch them deep, some play action, and I think Alec Pierce is a sneaky DFS play, probably more so than like a wide receiver 3 or anything like that. But on the Baltimore side, unless anybody else.
One more thing. Are we sleeping on Callan Granson?
I don't know.
Are we?
I don't know.
Chris, you're nodding in approval. What are your thoughts with Kylan Granson?
Well, last week isn't so much he helped out a little bit, just being that big guy that Richardson could actually see, when he was getting a little bit of pressure from that Texans defense. I think that I trust him more than I do Alec Pierce, to be honest with you. I just feel big body, he made everybody laugh with that Instagram post after he scored his first touchdown.
Exactly.
And I feel like Minshew, he's a guy's guy, so Minshew just wants to give him more love, so he's going to hook him up this week.
I think that the big play for Pierce is there, but you're right. I think maybe a more consistent second option is Kylan Granson. And that's, I have my Mo Alley Cox love always, so it hurts, but Time to move on, Nate. Time to move on.
So Kyle, you have something to say about Michael Pittman. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so I think you could actually safely start Michael Pittman because Richardson went down pretty early in that contest last week, and it was Gardner Minshew that fed him 12 targets, and Pittman went 8 catches for 56 yards. I think that's important to note that if he's feeding him when he came into that game, that could continue going into this game. So that's just important to add that. I think Michael Pittman can have a good game today.
Good point.
Yeah, I'm in favor of that. Baltimore side, I don't know. I think I would rather. I think I'd rather start Pittman over any of the wide receivers in Baltimore. I think I would Zach Moss or Gus Edwards.
Gus.
Gus bust.
Can I go with Zach Moss?
You can. You can do
Yeah,
it.
I think I'm going to go with Zach Moss. I mean, I think Lamar's their number one, running back essentially, right? So if you're looking at Gus, he's probably the number 2 there. I mean, Zach Moss, I don't think Gardner's going to be running all that much. So that's the only thing that does it for me right there, is that makes that kind of distinction. But just talking about Minshew real quick, I just wanted to mention this. Is he not one of the best backups like in the NFL right now? I mean, hands down, right?
They follow the good suit like fantasy managers should, is if you have Anthony Richardson, have a secondary that can slot in, not drop too far down, and continue to. It might be a different look, and Baltimore. Granted, they had the whole week to prepare for a non-rushing quarterback, in assuming that he was going to be out, but maybe not, because it wasn't. I mean, it was 2 days in that they announced Richardson, but it's a different look. They can't look at the same tape other than last week's. Well, it's 50% of the season, so never mind. Forget what I was saying. Sample size is 2 games, Nate. Let's relax. But yeah,
him between to answer Stacy's question, it's between him and Jacoby Brisket.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Hal says Mike White.
Yeah, I throw him in there too. I throw all 4 of those guys in there. Those guys are great backups.
Jameis.
Famous Jameis, absolutely. Hide your crab legs.
They were given to him by a friend.
Allegedly.
Exactly.
I would steal crab legs too, though. At least it was crab legs. If he stole I don't know, fish sticks or something stupid.
It depends on the crab legs. Like,
at least stole crab legs. I hope they were king. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, come on, that's pretty good. So, all right, Baltimore side. We've talked a lot about Gus Edwards. Obviously, right there, I think in our flex spot from where it sounds like consensus we're at, maybe RB2 in a pinch if you have to. Zay Flowers, I think we're higher on as long as the weather holds up. Mark Andrews is a must play. Defensively speaking, Jorge, Baltimore front line, the Colts are without Ryan Kelly, their starting center. I don't know if the interior pressure is going to be enough, but maybe it opens up something. David Ajabo is a name to pay attention
is who I was going to bring up. Yeah, he is definitely somebody people should be paying attention to. Definitely Owe has not been, for whatever reason, at least in the week 1, was not producing. But Ajabo, you have seen him start to get more opportunity.
And always out. So,
well, then that's even better for Patrick Queen. Ugh. Well, you know what? It's been a few years since I've been on this Give Me Some Steel Wool to scrub off the Patrick Queen talk. But you know what? It's been a couple seasons now where him and Roquan have been able to coexist for fantasy. It's fine. Even Geno Stone has shown some life here and there, although that's a deeper defensive back pull there. Mm-hmm. For the Colts, Zaire Franklin is obviously one of the top producing linebackers for fantasy and IDP.
Yep.
But you're not so high on Shaq Leonard anymore. Can you tell the people why a little bit?
He's in a rotation. Him and EJ Speed. We thought it was maybe just a situational where Shaq had re-aggravated an injury or something to that effect, but it was strictly just a snap share. So him and EJ Speed rotating out. I mean, it wouldn't shock me if Shaq sees the high percentage this week, but I wouldn't be optimistic. I worry about that just a little bit. And so I'm sitting Shaq Leonard right now. Definitely starting Zaire Franklin. He has 30 tackles on the season already. But yeah, then that pretty much wraps up.
Julian Blackman.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. Julian Blackman's been great, man.
Yeah, I mean his box snaps have been through the roof, and he had a great week too. So A lot of good high tackle floors here for the Indianapolis Colts. Even DeForest Buckner, interior defensive lineman. If you have to start a defensive tackle, he's always a must start. Even Kwity Paye had a good game a couple weeks ago. So, yeah.
Baltimore's without their two starting players, Tyler Linderbaugh and Ronnie Stanley, two all-pro offensive linemen. So there could be some pressures, and that worries me a little bit about Gus, but not enough to go back and change everything that we've said for the past 2 hours. I'll stick with that. But now our favorite time is the time to talk a little bit about the food that pairs well with the mimosas in the morning. Is Courtney bringing us tailgating in frames?
I love playing two-hand touch, eating way too much.
Oh, welcome to another episode of Tailgating in Frames. I'm your host, Courtney, and you can find me at Twitter at LoveTractor3, but more importantly, you can find me right here with the gang, Fantasy in Frames. So, last week, I called the score right, didn't get the winner right. I thought the Bengals were going to bounce back. Joe Burrow's obviously still hurt, and we might not even see him play tomorrow night. So, obviously, the Bengals got to figure out what's going on and get it together. But I digress. Let's talk about today. Today, it's all about my Saints. They are traveling north to play Green Bay at Lambeau Field. And as a nurse and a busy mom, I don't always get to sit down and watch all the games. Today, I get to do that. So I don't want to cook. So what are we going to do? Let's make a cocktail today. Y'all, the best part about today's game, in my opinion, is that we are going to see TCU's rookie sensation, Kendra Miller, on the field for the first time in an NFL game. And I am really excited about that. I truly think that the offense needs a spark, and he's going to give it to them. Speaking of sparkling or sparks, what are we going to do today? We are going to make a peach, let's call it Southern Peach Sparkle. Now, I know when you think about peaches, you think about Georgia, right? Well, peaches grow abundant all over the South. In New Orleans, they make cocktails, daiquiris, margaritas, dishes. You can find them everywhere. So my neighbor's peach tree is going crazy. Now, these aren't as wonderful, juicy like they are in the South, but they're pretty darn good. So what we're going to do first, we're going to cut up some peaches, and we are going to put them into a blender, and we are going to put a splash of OJ into that blender so that we can blend up the peaches. Now, if you don't have a blender, you can muddle them. And muddling basically just means smashing. Smashing with the back of your spoon, smashing with, if you actually have a muddler, if you actually have, a masher that you use for potatoes, you could use that too. Because we just want to get them smashed down because you're almost trying to get that puree consistency. Now, what are we going to do with the other smashing opponent, the other smashing parts of getting this victory? Y'all, Derek Carr's got to get it together. I am excited that Derek Carr's our quarterback because we saw that Andy Dalton wasn't, he wasn't doing it for us. Jameis Winston was hurt. So Taysom Hill's not the answer. So I am glad that we have Derek Carr. Derek Carr is a proven veteran, but Derek Carr has been very sloppy in the pocket. That last interception that he made at half against the Panthers, I could have thrown the ball better than that. And our offensive line also needs to be a complete, strong unit. I say that because last week against the Panthers, 3 of our 5 starting offensive linemen let people get through for a sack. We can't have that. Derek Carr needs time in the pocket to be able to scan the field and be able to move the chains. Sounds easy enough, right? But when he is pressured, he's throwing balls to Olave that Olave can't get, right? Throwing balls to Michael Thomas that Michael Thomas can't get. Speaking of Michael Thomas, Jair Alexander for the Green Bays in their secondary most likely will be on him. So I could see this being a really big game for Rashid Shaheed again. Okay, so back to that drink. We went ahead and made the puree, right? And if you don't have the blender, you can, of course, just smash those peaches by hand. And we talked about how the Saints, what the keys to the Saints smashing the Packers are today. I think this is going to be a really big road test for us. They're going to be hungry. This is Jordan Love's first home game. Think about that. He just lost to the Falcons by 1 point. He has come in before for Aaron Rodgers, but now being the starting quarterback, this is his first home game in Lambeau Field. It's going to be loud. It's going to be crazy. They are going to be hungry. So our defense has to step it up. And of course, you're going to be hungry today. So order some pizza. Order some burgers from your favorite restaurant, because we're not making recipes today, y'all. We're going to sit on the couch and chill with our little peach spritzer. So if you did do it in the blender, go ahead and just use the blender to mix up your drink, right? What you're going to do now is you are going to use some vodka. Give yourself a shot. Give yourself your 2 shots, whatever you want. I use Tito's just because I love Tito's, but you can use anything. Hey, if you're even feeling spicy, you could go buy yourself a peach vodka to make it extra yummy. So just go ahead and put that vodka in, right? I'm not using a shot glass, but of course you can. Then we're going to do 1/3 orange juice to 2/3 Sprite or lemon lime soda, whatever you got. So a little bit of orange juice in. Perfect. Then we're going to go with the Sprite as well. And you're going to see that Sprite adds a really nice zing, really nice carbonation. So we're going to go with the Sprite as well. Right. Okay. Now, at this point, you can either, blend it back up a little bit, but I'm just going to use a spoon. Perfect. That should be good to go. You are going to serve this over ice because you want it cold. You don't want it hot, like I'm praying my Saints are going to be hot against these Packers. So I am predicting 21-17, give or take. That's kind of what I'm thinking, because it is going to be more of a defensive game in my eyes than it is going to be an offensive game, because our defense, in the press conference, Derek Carr even said the defense has been winning these games, not him, right? So defense, low scoring game. I think the over under right now is like 41.5. So I predict it going under. I predict the Saints winning 21-17. Jordan Love will get his first interception. I cannot wait to see Kendra Miller on the field. Watson most likely not playing, but Aaron Jones will be playing. And I do expect him to do pretty good. We don't have the best run defense. Neither does the Packers. And so that is why, Bijan Robinson gobbled up 124 yards on the ground last week against them. And so I think that Kendra Miller, given the shot, is going to do very well. And I expect him to get his first NFL touchdown. Let's see. Of course, you're going to play Michael Thomas. Of course, you're going to play Chris Olave. If you're in a Superflex league, I could see you playing Derek Carr because you probably have to. I don't know if I'd play Jordan Love, though. I just don't. I know he's had good games, but this is a really good defense that he's going to be playing. So, once again, I am Courtney. This is Tailgating in Frames. And today, we're not cooking. We're drinking because the Saints are on. You can find me on Twitter at LoveTractor3. You can always find me right here with the gang at Fantasy and Frames. And who dat, y'all? Let's go ahead and try this. Oh, it is so creamy. That puree, the bubbles from the lemon lime soda. I might have been a little heavy-handed, but that's okay because it is Saints Day. Let's go. Who dat? Have a great Sunday, y'all. Go win your games.
And I love Kansas! Here's the football!
Wonderful job by Courtney. Stacy, I was going to ask you, though, is she drinking because the Saints are on or because the Saints are on?
Oh, she's going to be crying those tears into that drink after my Packers get done with them. That's right. No, I'm with her, though, on Kendra Miller. I've got him in my lineup, excited to see what he can do today, especially since I was a big Swag Daddy fan and had Jamal Williams in a lot of spots, and now he's on the IR. So best of luck, Jamal. I hope you get better soon. I'm sure you're watching. But yeah, I'm a Packer fan today and always. And so I got to go with my Packers, especially now that we just got news that Aaron Jones and Christian Watson are going to be out this week. If I've got Jaden Reed, I'm throwing him everywhere in my lineup.
Mm-hmm. We talked a little bit about Jaden Reed earlier. Talked about maybe not in the most shining light about AJ Dillon. How optimistic are you, even knowing Aaron Jones is out with AJ Dillon?
All right, this pains me to say as a Packer fan,
Mm-hmm.
and this is just for fantasy purposes, but I gotta say AJ Dillon's kind of dead to me right now. Love AJ Dillon otherwise, but in fantasy, I just can't. I can't do it. Can't start him. He and Aaron Jones have definitely very different running styles, and I don't know what's going on at last season. The first couple games of this season, I'm not sure why it's not working for him,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not. And I think at this point, I hope that you have better options than AJ Dillon. If you don't, then we're at week 3 and things have gone off the rails for you very quickly.
Very nice way of saying different running styles being effective versus ineffective or good versus bad. But diplomatic, fan through and through. Carolina Panthers, Seattle Seahawks, 4:00 slate of games, over under 42. No Bryce Young for this week or the foreseeable future. The game most likely will probably fall into Miles Sanders' hands. Is Miles Sanders a good flex play this week, Chris?
I think so. Like you've just alluded to. Well, you didn't allude to. You actually said it. Andy Dalton will be the quarterback for the Panthers today, and I really don't know what we expect from Andy Dalton at this point. I do think that he will come in and he'll be a game manager and move it along, but I think that moving the chains is really going to be relying on the legs of Miles Sanders today. Seattle, like their defense is decent against the run and everything, but I just feel that the volume is what's going to be key for Sanders today.
Yeah. Preston, are you higher or lower on Adam Thielen, Jonathan Mingo? You can probably just add the rest of the receiving core with Andy Dalton than you were with Bryce Young.
Well, I wasn't that high on that core to begin with, but I'm lower. I'm even lower on all of them.
Okay.
This game is going to be about their defense and Miles Sanders.
Kyle, on the Seattle side, is this a game where JSN gets more involved, or is that just going to be a steady progression as the season unfolds, maybe waiting for an injury to happen to become truly, truly flex worthy?
Well, one of Carolina's strengths on defense is Pasty. They're 6th best. I still want to see out of the rookie before I want to throw him in as a flex play, but you still got to start DK Metcalf. You still probably start Tyler Lockett, but as far as Jackson Smith and Jigba, I think it's just a wait and see.
Yeah, and that's fair. And week 1 was against Atlanta, so Carolina's pass rush or pass defense snaps might be a little inflated by the fact that Atlanta, did they even have a pass attempt? My guess is probably the under of 2 pass attempts in that game, but still that is one of their strengths for sure. The pass rush is strong. Their actual like upfront run stopping should be pretty good. Jorge, Kenneth Walker in line for a solid game, or are you more of an RB2 for Kenneth Walker or flex?
That is a great question. So I have him as an RB2 this week. I actually just traded for him in one of our Fantasy and Frames Dynasty leagues. So yeah, I'm on board with Kenneth Walker. I think the bigger question here is what do you do with Zach Charbonnet, right? Like everybody's been waiting for this 1-2 punch to emerge, and we just haven't seen it really develop yet. And is this going to be the week? I don't think this is the week. I think a lot of us people who are like heavy in the Dynasty, and we make the mistake early on of like making that transition to redraft where it's like, oh, well, yes, these people who we've been scouting since March or May or April and have been drafting in our Dynasty leagues in June and July, they're immediately going to contribute because they're so good because we spent the majority of the year just studying them. And it's one of those things where you have to realize, yeah, well, that's people don't, like Arthur Smith says, I don't do this for fantasy football, I do this for real football. And if they're getting all this production, from Kenneth Walker already, there's no need to insert Charbonnet. There's not a lot of need for a lot of these teams to insert their rookie running backs or whatnot into the fold. But I do like the JSN take. I do like that. I could definitely see JSN having a game this week. But as far as Charbonnet is concerned, it's just basically a one running back show, I think, there in Seattle.
Yeah, with an over under of 42, I don't think many are expecting an absolute barn burner of a game. I think there'll be pieces here and there. Choosing between DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett is a week in and week out challenge that I don't envy on anybody. So I'll make everybody choose one or the other.
That could be Jonathan and my new shtick now, because we used to be the Cooper Kupp or Robert Woods. Who are you going to draft? Who are you going to pick this week? And now
we've done that too. Yeah. So what do you want? You want DK or Lockett?
I'll take DK.
Stacy?
DK.
Chris?
DK.
Preston?
I'll take DK.
Jonathan?
Do it.
I was actually thinking Lockett. Just
there you go. Yeah.
Sorry. Just with that injury, I mean, Lockett's been so solid this year. He's like he's just always undervalued. But they're pretty much back to back for me.
Yep, I heard Lockett. That's what I heard.
Exactly. That's what I heard as well. So outside of the offense, and I guess we could talk about tight ends if you guys really want to, but I don't think.
Yeah, we're good.
I don't want to, but always interject if you do have an opinion. Yeah. I'm never going to turn your mic off if you say something that I don't want to listen to. Defensively speaking, Jorge, Carolina, as I said, Brian Burns, Derek Brown. At linebacker, Frankie Louvu is one of my must starts. I think that matchup is his just involvement in that defense is incredible.
He's everywhere. He's everywhere.
He is. And that's exactly what the defensive coordinators even said about him during camp and leading into the season, is how impressed he is that he just can play no matter where you put him. And he's constantly around the ball in practice, even at low speeds, high speeds. He's just, he has a nose for being in the right place at the right time. Yep. Shaq Thompson being hurt last week. Kamu Grugier-Hill is the replacement. I think that we'll see ample snaps for both of them. I think Luvu's the better play between the two, but Kamu Grugier-Hill wouldn't shock me if we see 7-8 tackles and maybe a pass defense, but not much more in the way of splash plays. And then I have to pay, Jeremy Chin, I'm sitting. I just don't trust the involvement or the usage. Nothing about his utilization on the field screams IDP upside. How about on the Seattle side?
If I had to pick a pass rusher or edge rusher defensive lineman, it'd be Uchenna Nwosu for the Seattle Seahawks. Obviously, you're rolling with Bobby Wagner. Jordan Brooks, I'm curious to see how he responds this week, given the fact that he's going to be there and at quarterback, meaning that this Panthers offense should be maybe a little bit more run heavy. So I want to see if there's enough tackles for both Brooks and Wagner to coexist as potential LB1s this week. Mm-hmm. And then Julian Love, if healthy, he's a defensive back play there for the Seahawks. What
about Jamal Adams' involvement? He's back for the first time in quite some time.
Did he come back last week? I didn't. I missed that if he did.
This week.
See, even if he comes, coincidentally, I suffered the same injury as Jamal Adams. Hopefully I can come back to it all pro level this time next year. We'll find out. That notwithstanding, it has to be one of those things where even if he's back healthy, he was supposed to be back week 1 and they've held him back for the past 2 weeks. And so I still think his utilization is not going to be as high as Jamal Adams managers are hoping. Mm-hmm. So I still am okay rolling with Julian Love as a DB2 this week with DB1 upside. Regardless if Jamal Adams inserts himself into the lineup more often than not.
Let's move from that game to obviously one that I have high hopes for. Chicago at Kansas City, over under 48 with the 48-point total. What did they predict? 46-2 for the Chiefs to win. I don't know if a 44-point spread's ever been accomplished, but actually I'm not that high on it. I worry that this is a trap game too, that they've taken Justin Fields too lightly, and his conversation and comments that he had about he's going to play it his way. Stacey, do those comments move Justin Fields up in your ranks or make you feel more comfortable starting him?
No, I thought all 48 points were going to go to the Chiefs. Honestly, is that possible? Can they? Is there any way we can make 48 points? No, honestly, and I took Justin Fields out of my lineup this week, and I know we had either a question or we were talking about it earlier about putting him in or putting Stroud in place of Fields, and I actually put Dak Prescott in place for Fields in a league with some pretty big ramifications, and so I don't know. He hasn't looked great. I don't know what is going on in Chicago. It seems like a hot mess down there. Until he gets it back on track, I'm really questioning whether or not I can start Fields. And I hate that because, I know that I took him in the 6th round in places. That's usually where he was going, especially as it was getting, closer to, August and, the season starting. But I just don't know how you trust him right now. I mean, it's rough. It's just rough there in Chicago. And I don't know what's going on. I don't think anybody expected it to be this bad.
All right. So I got a rough question for you then.
Yeah.
I'm presented with the same problem about starting Justin Fields or not. And this is my best backup alternative. Baker Mayfield.
No.
Yeah. Oh, no. Do it.
Immediately, you're like, yeah.
Do it.
Nate, you're like, no. Now I got to know. So, Kyle, Baker Mayfield or Justin Fields? This is the conversation we're having this week.
Yeah, I'm going Justin Fields on this.
Jonathan?
Yeah, I'm still going Fields.
Rapid fire Preston?
I got to go Fields.
Chris?
Baker.
There you go. Stacey, Baker?
Yeah, Baker. I don't know. He's hot right now. Let's see what happens. And Cincinnati is also in a tailspin too. So.
Yeah. So.
Oh wait, they're not playing Cincinnati. I'm sorry. They're playing.
They play the Eagles. Yeah.
I got my wrong Monday night game.
Phil, the Eagles have a tail, so you were close, and they will be preying on this on Baker and that offensive line, I believe. Actually, the offensive line's played much better than I expected, so I should just shut up there. But we see if I have about 5 questions I would love for you guys to be able to answer. Number 1, Jorge, I will do this part. There you go.
Okay.
Nope, that's not the right one.
I like that one.
Get out of here, Jim.
Good. Okay.
Baker's waking up dangerous.
Oh, gross. Russ. The Russ switch or Justin Fields?
Russell Wilson.
Oh, man.
Wilson.
Fields.
I think I'm going Wilson, but I'm not happy.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't like it. I feel a little dirty, but I'm going to go with Russ.
Eli Apple makes me say Russ.
There you go. Kyle?
The clock is ticking on me. I'm going to go Russ. Oh,
Let's go to the next question here. We got Raheem Mostert or Miles Sanders. Okay, we'll let Chris answer last since that's going to be an obvious. Or maybe it won't be. We'll find, you know what? You're nodding your head and you're grinning. Is it going to be Raheem Mostert over Miles Sanders this week, Chris?
No, I'm taking Miles Sanders.
How about that? All right. Preston, what about you?
Going Miles Sanders.
Stacey?
Raheem must start. Come on now.
Chris? I'm sorry.
Miles Sanders.
Jonathan?
2 votes.
I have made this exact. I've had to make this exact same decision in my home league, and I've gone with Mostert.
And Kyle?
Miles.
No Nate.
I don't think you can go wrong with either one, so I'm going to avoid that question altogether.
I said Mostert.
And you said Mostert? Okay, well, there
Just
you
for
go.
the record.
But they're really close. It's like 12 and
Yeah.
14. So
We got another question here. Jalen Warren or Jerome Ford in a standard? Man,
dude, that's hard because Jerome Ford, against
hard.
Tennessee, I could see just nothing. And Jalen Warren, earlier when I was talking about the route percentage and target per route run and all those metrics, he's one of those 14 that reaches the barometer that is elite. So I don't want to believe that he'll take over enough snaps for Najee, but Najee sucks. And Jalen Warren is proven. Last week, if you watched that game and just turned in and just turned it off, turn it back on, turn it off, turn it back on, there's a better chance that you turned it on to watch Jalen Warren break one than you did to see Najee Harris do anything effective.
probably.
Terrible reason for analysis.
Yeah, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. Okay, so did we make a consensus there? Are we going with Warren or Ford this week? Stacey, let's have you be the deciding factor here.
Yeah, I'm going with Warren only because I just don't like I don't like Ford against that Tennessee run D. I just don't love it. And God, every time I've seen Warren, he just looks like a freaking superstar. So gotta go with Warren.
All right, Jonathan, let's go with you. T. Higgins or Josh Kelly in PPR this week?
This is such a horrible question, especially because it should be T. Higgins. 99 times out of 100. That one other time is when Joe Burrow was injured. Because of the potential of Burrow not being there, I think I'm going Kelly just to play it safe. But I think if there's any indication that Burrow is playing before you have to make that decision, then I'm going T. Higgins.
I got an IDP question for Nate.
Okay.
Quan Alexander, Ernest Jones, or Kaiser White? Pick two. Need a tackle machine or tackle machines?
Ernest Jones is my easy one. Cincinnati, as you said, without Burrow, I think leans heavier on Mixon to try to move the chains and get the game going. As far as the number 2 option, I'm taking Kaiser White just because I think he'll be on the field 70 times, maybe 65 times against Dallas. I think that I don't also trust the usage completely with Quan in Pittsburgh. I know that he's had some games, but give me those two for sure.
All right, we got a few more questions here. We got Rashad White or Jerome Ford.
Rashad White
Preston, let's go to you.
I'm gonna go Rashad White.
All right, Jonathan.
Yeah, I'm going White as well.
Kyle.
Rashad White.
All right. All right, so now we got a few more games to go. We just hit the noon hour, so those of you who are still hanging around with us, we are going to make sure to get through these games as quick as possible.
Yep, sorry about that.
No, you're good. So just remember to keep your questions, put them in the chat. We will get to them. We promised before we are off the air today. So thank you very much for staying with us. Thank everybody who's with us on screen today for their time. All right, let's get into finishing off this Chiefs Bears.
So what do you got?
Yeah, okay, I'm sorry.
There's a lot to be had with the offensive side with question marks because I think a lot of people are questioning DJ Moore. Do you start DJ Moore in this matchup? I mean, it's optimism for DJ Moore is probably at a low, but is there any other option in Chicago, Jonathan, that you even worry about? I mean, Khalil Herbert.
No, I'm completely done with that running game. I think Rashawn Johnson is probably someone that I'd like to have on my bench just for future weeks. But I think this game, no. I mean, it all comes down to kind of how Fields actually starts playing. It's just I find the whole sort of plan around Justin Fields and kind of changing everything that worked last year really quite odd. The lack of rushing attempts, the lack of sort of designed run plays that worked last year. I think until we see a change, then I'm benching pretty much everyone other than DJ Moore.
Yeah, and that's it. DJ Moore, maybe Justin Fields.
Pretty much. I think Justin Fields, because I think that there will become a point at which they kind of go back to what was working. I mean, like if a British guy in his spare bedroom, like thousands of miles away, can see it, I would like to think that the Chicago Bears coaching staff can as well. But yeah, let's see.
Yeah, nothing like the hundreds of thousands of British guys in their spare bedroom hating on the Chicago Bears at once. I think that's probably in unison. They're probably also hating on the Kansas City Chiefs wide receiving group. I don't know if does anybody have one Kansas City Chief wide receiver that they would feel comfortable starting? Hand up if you do, because I don't. It's not Travis Kelce. Yes, go ahead, Preston.
We can do. I believe we can start Sky Moore this week. We can put him in the flex spot this week. He stays on the field.
Yep.
And I believe it looks like Mahomes likes him. He got in the end zone. What did he get? 70 yards last week, and he got in the end zone. I see him coming along. So we could start Sky Moore this week.
I like your optimism and enthusiasm. It's tough. He throws to 11 different receivers each game, so you never know. Let's go. We got a couple questions here. Number one, we have JSN or Romeo Dobbs. Stacy, let's go do that for you.
Dobbs for sure. Dobbs. I love JSN. I love his talent. I'm just not sure yet. I think he's like we were talking about earlier, and I don't remember who said it. Nate, it might have been you. I think he needs to go just a little further along in the season, and I think he's going to be challenging Lockett, but just not today.
Gotcha. All right, Kyle, pick 2 here. Zach Moss, Tyler Lockett, Chris Godwin.
Zach Moss,
full point
volume.
PPR.
Okay. Zach Moss for the volume and a toss up between Lockett and Godwin. Oh, man. I'll go Godwin. That's tough.
Yeah, that is a tough one there. All right, Chris, here's this one for you. Would you trade DJ Moore for Gabe Davis?
I would not. I'd keep DJ Moore. I just trust him more than Gabe's flashlight status.
Right there with you. Preston, you get this. Zach Moss or Jerome Ford?
Well, when you picked up Ford and you spent all your fab on Ford, you should have known that you might not be able to play him this week. So I'm gonna go with Moss.
Yep. Something sounds like that's 100% of that person's fab on Moss and Ford probably to start the season. And unfortunately, or fortunately, that's 2. If you got both 2 starting running backs, that's a win. And then as Gator says, Christian Watson is out, which probably helps with the Romeo Dobbs love there. Him and Jalen Reed, I think both are good options. The IDP for the Chiefs and the Bears, Nick Bolton is out, is big news. Drew Tranquil is someone to pay attention to. George Karlaftis is the defensive end that I have extremely high this week, along with Chris Jones. Chicago Bears, I think Tremaine Edmonds is a decent play. Linebackers against the Chiefs nobody does great against the Chiefs IDP wise because they spread the ball too much that it's not consolidated to one area. And so everybody gets a little piece. So I'm not real high on too many of anybody really, really standing out. There's probably some people that I miss, but Preston, is you had with your flex play is Sky Moore that finishes the Bears and Chiefs. Cowboys at Arizona Cardinals is going to be, I feel bad for Arizona. Is there anybody in Arizona that anybody wants to start? Maybe not named Hollywood Brown or Zach Ertz.
Can we pick on that? See volume, but
can you what?
Go ahead, Jonathan. I'm sorry.
So I was going to say Connor's going to see volume, but I mean, it's going to be the same every week with Arizona, where there's going to be a floor to some players, but basically no upside, and particularly in a game against Dallas, I think we can probably move on quite quickly from this side of the ball.
Yeah, Preston, what were you going to say?
Yeah, not that I'm going with anybody on Arizona, but can we pick on that dig side?
Maybe if it was. I don't know. I just don't know if I have enough, I guess, either respect or belief in the Arizona passing game to fulfill that all the way through. But you're right. There's a weakness that they have.
There's a weakness there.
And Diggs being out does hurt. And I think that Hollywood last year, without DeAndre Hopkins the first 5 weeks, he was a wide receiver 1. So we know that the potential is there. I just don't know if he's a PPR probably flex play that I'm not disgusted with, kind of similar to Connor, but I think that I could see the game getting away where Connor's just not phased in. And Zach Ertz is a target monster. I mean, he's had a ton of targets. I just don't think any of them amount to anything. The Cowboy side, the Cowboy side is full of potential options. Tony Pollard, of course, is has to be most people's RB1, or at least pretty close to it. Stacy said you were starting Dak over Justin Fields, which
and just because of this matchup, right? Because Arizona is such a garbage fire over there, dumpster fire, and yeah, I mean, I think when I was looking at my lineup, I was like, all right, well, I took Dak as a backup. If I'm ever going to play him, this is probably going to be the game, right, to do it. If I'm gonna pull the trigger on that. I see Courtney in the chat saying her Saints defense is going to get after Jordan Love. Girl, you and I need to get offline and do a little bet on this game. I will touch base with you later.
Courtney's had a couple of her peach drinks this morning. Actually, no, the Saints defense, that pass rush against a David Bakhtiari and Elgin Jenkins less offensive line is dangerous. Carl Granderson, Cameron Jordan, like we said, I think it's going to be it's tough. Jordan Love might be the 11% touchdown percentage might drop after this game. I got one person on the Cowboys offense that has me intrigued. What to do with Brandon Cooks this week? Does Brandon Cooks cook, or is he cooked and essentially needs another week to come back to full health? Let's start with you, Chris.
I'm benching him until I see something different than what we've seen. Like, I'm benching him, especially in the game against Arizona. It's not like, I don't think that the Cowboys are going to have to play catch up. I don't think they're going to have to air it out a lot. I think it's going to be put away early, and then they're running backs on a feast.
So, Preston, that's a concern that I actually kind of have a little bit. Is there a chance that the second half is a Dakless and offensive starterless Dallas Cowboy team, or are we going to be proven wrong and they just step on people's throats and keep going?
I think they just step on people's throats. Keep going.
Yep. I like that.
They're just going to – Cowboys got something to prove, a lot to prove.
I'm right there. I think that their effect on the Arizona throats will be the same that Courtney's is on her drink glass, which is that her drink will still taste good with all the tears, but she's making it in a plastic cup because her blood pressure is too intense and glasses are thrown. Yes, throw it. I'm sorry. I was thinking crushing it with your bare hands, but if it was a glass, that would be bad. It would also be badass. Don't do it. But just saying, next week's Tailgating in Frames, if we see with something on your wrap on your hand, we know what actually happened. And as Eddie said, yes, let's make sure Pollard does get 2 touchdowns before they pull him and it turns into a stupid Rico Dowdle second half, or Deuce Vaughn, whomever people want to believe in more. I think that's Dallas. Jake Ferguson touchdown today. Yes or no, Stacey?
I really do like Jake Ferguson. Kind of one of those, and tight end is what it is, right? I mean, it's kind of a wasteland. So, yeah, why not? Let's go against Arizona. Absolutely. Let's do it. Let's throw that out there. I like it.
Why not? Stacey's telling you put $50 on touchdown anytime for Jake Ferguson. I hate the fact that they spread it out so much with Hendershot and even, Shoemaker getting the piece of it. But I do like Jake Ferguson.
Yeah.
Cowboys, Arizona, IDP wise, start every Cowboys defensive player you can if you want to, but also concerned that they are not on the field that much. Arizona, as I touched on earlier, Kazir White and Dennis Gardeck, defensive end, who's had 3 sacks on 4 pressures on the season. Probably not sustainable. Like the guy for what he's done, but not sold. Kayvon Wallace is the name that we'll remember after this game. Safety filling in for the Budda Baker role, should play, I think, 72% of the snaps in the box last week. Could very easily replicate that this week. I think Kayvon Wallace will be a person that we will talk about from an IDP, like a defensive back 1/2 going into next week. Sunday night game, Pittsburgh Steelers at Las Vegas Raiders. Could we flex out in week 3 a different game besides this one? Or is that unfair to the Pittsburgh faithful and Raiders fans? We know the answer. Preston, let's talk about some flex plays in this matchup.
Well, I have Jacoby Myers and Calvin Austin as my flex starter of the weeks this week. Jacoby, if he was playing last week, he would have saw a massive amount of targets. Calvin Austin, Parker. I'm sorry.
You're good.
Calvin Austin, I think he's gonna fill into that Deontay Johnson role for right now, and Jacoby's going to eat this week. So either one of those flex plays are fine.
Chris,
and I believe this is going to be a sneaky good game. To be totally honest with you, they're playing in Las Vegas. Steelers' offense is not all that, so I see this being a sneaky good game.
Okay. Some people like, defensive matchups, and maybe there might be some explosiveness because they're both capable of getting to the – I think that from a defensive standpoint, it's going to be – I think that could be a very fun game because between TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith, Max Crosby, you have 3 elite edge rushers against poor offensive lines. What does that mean, Chris, for Najee and Jalen Warren? We talked about that earlier. Is this a 50-50 split starting this week, or is it still Najee, 70-30?
I think it's a 50-50 split. Mike Tomlin, even last week, he admitted that he noticed that when Warren's on the field, like there's some juice there to be had. And Najee has just been awful. I mean, like you said, like earlier when you switch your TV off and on, like generally if you turn it on, you're probably going to see where Jaylen Warren is out there looking dynamic.
Mhm.
Whereas every time that Najee gets the ball, he just looks like me carrying the football, like right now, not in my prime, but right here today. And so,
You're not in your prime?
I mean, my prime.
I think you're in your prime.
I still got another 25 years of prime, but I'm not as good as I
Damn
once was. Put it that
Better than Coach Prime, hopefully, yesterday's performance.
Ooh, that was brutal.
He didn't play on the field, so I'm not even throwing shade at Coach Prime. That was unfair for the people that are. So I digress.
The Steelers, they might be intimidated by some of the Las Vegas jawlines.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Hey, love it.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, man. Oh, hell. I love this show. I love doing this. It's my favorite part of the whole day. And this is, I'm not going to say it's better than football, but it's pretty damn close. I laugh more at this. Hopefully I'm not crying like Courtney when the Chiefs and the Bears is disappointing. We will see. Anybody, I mean, here's my take. I think Josh Jacobs is the LB1 this week. Running back 1. Damn IDP. I do. Pittsburgh allowing like 6.5 yards per clip. I think last week was an aberration that Josh Jacobs will have. I think he'll get 20 carries and actually have close to 100 yards. The receiving game, I mean, Jacobs like numbers on the season. If there's a buy low for a person, if you can still get them low, that's my 2 cents. But he's just been, I mean, he's been fantastic. 78% of the snaps, 64% of the rushes, a 32% target per route run, 19% target rate on the season, and he's running 52% of the routes. Everything that screams, hey, invest in a person who might be leaned on. And I know there's that 370 touch plateau that everybody's hit, but maybe there's upside for there. And I think I kind of touched on some of the IDP options there that between the game. Monday night, we're faced with a doubleheader. First of all, does everybody hate that they play him basically at the same time? Mm-hmm. Is that the dumbest thing you've ever seen? Does anybody know the reason why? Is that money thing? Or I can't believe, I just don't get it.
It has to be a money thing.
In doubt. Yeah. If in doubt, it's probably a money thing.
They don't care about the viewers really.
But they're competing against themselves.
That's what I don't understand. It's like I don't get it. It's stupid.
Yeah, fake competition always brings more money.
Mm-hmm. It's a flawed, goofy situation. But the good news is for me, there's one game that I kind of want to watch and the other game that I kind of want to watch. So I'll just take both teams. Probably I'll watch when the Eagles are on offense and when the Rams are on offense, which is really screwed up to say, versus the Bengals, because the Bengals I'm assuming Burrow's going to be out. Preface that. But the Eagles side, let's start there against Tampa. I know the Baker Mayfield. Who did we say Baker's starting over? Justin Fields? That's crazy talk. I mean, come on. But at the same time, is it really that crazy? Here's the biggest polarizing player on Philly. We got to figure it out. Who's going to lead the backfield in touches, in fantasy points? DeAndre Swift? Yes, no, indifferent. Kenneth Gainwell? Yes, no, indifferent. Will Rashad Penny see one touch again? What, Jonathan? Pick one of the three. Fantasy points.
I think based on last week, I'm going with Swift, but I wouldn't expect him to get however many touches it was. Again, I think it'll be a bit more split, but based on his performance last week, I think he's probably going to be the safest bet for today.
Stacy?
Yeah, recency bias, so I'm going with DeAndre Swift.
Preston?
Yeah, I'm going with Swift. He showed enough last week.
Yeah. Chris, finally, anything?
Gainwell.
Yeah.
Swift is Swift, and Swift will always be Swift, and we will always want to love Swift, and he will always break our heart.
And that is pretty fair. Probably on people's bench last week for Rashad Penny, like many, and this week it's going to be conundrum. Will AJ Brown outproduce Devontae Smith this week? Start with you, Chris.
That's a good one. I honestly really don't know. It's like it really could be either one of them. Really depends on whatever route is run against whatever defense, and Hurts finds them. Like,
Yep.
Honestly, I really can't say I have a favorite between either of those guys.
Preston, squeaky wheel get the grease and AJ Brown. You like typical, or is it just like exactly like Chris said, whoever has the better matchup?
Squeaky wheel gets the grease.
Yep, AJ Brown. Stacy,
All about it.
Same here. I have more Devontae Smith, so if he throws it more to him, that's gonna help me out. But yeah, I think after AJ Brown was visibly unhappy over his involvement in last week's game, I see them feeding him a little bit more.
Yeah.
Then on the Tampa Bay side, Jonathan, here you get your $1 million question. Chris Godwin, Mike Evans.
I think for the big plays, I think I'm still going with Mike Evans. He's not dead yet. That 1,000-yard season streak, I think, is hopefully gonna continue. So yeah, I'm still going with Evans.
Gotcha. And then Rachaad White. I don't know, believer or non-believer in Rachaad White. I'm a believer, like everything we've seen. Heavily involvement in every aspect of the game, and the Bucs are playing better. Is anybody not a believer in Rachaad White? And if so,
I believe in the value.
Yep, value. Chris?
Yeah, I still believe in Rachaad White. Not for that Monday night game, but rest of season.
Stacey, are you a buyer in Rachaad White after a bad game against Philly if that happens?
I'm a Sean Tucker fan. I want to see Sean Tucker get more involved.
Gotcha. And Jonathan? Are you a buyer if he has a bad week?
I do possibly have some kind of longer term concerns. I think, the inefficiencies to me I think I'd probably like to see a little bit more before I buy low.
Fair enough. Malcolm has a question. He wants to know, is Ivan Pace and Henry To'oTo'o good starts this week? I think they're both decent starts. I think that depending upon the situation, if you have some injuries and you need some depth, or if you play in a super deep league, Malcolm, which I know you probably do, I definitely like Ivan Pace more than To'oTo'o, but To'oTo'o is in a great spot this week with no Perryman. Going forward, I think both of these two guys could theoretically turn into the primary snap gainer for their defense, especially if the Vikings suck and they end up moving on from Jordan Hicks. I don't think that's a scenario, but it's something potential. You never quite can tell. So, yeah, I actually, To'oTo'o is one of my starts of the week, and Ivan Pace is always high on there. So the answer would be yes. IDP side for the Eagles and the Bucs. On the Eagles side, I always like Josh Sweat. I don't like the matchup against Tristan Wirfs, but Josh Sweat is, dynamic when good matchups persist. I might drop him down a little bit. Hassan Reddick's been an enigma. I can't understand anything at all. Maybe it's the defensive coordinator change. I don't know. His matchup against Gedeke is not ideal either. Nicholas Morrow and Zach Cunningham. It's tough. No Nakobe Dean again. Kind of 6 in one hand, half dozen in the other. And then they get Reed Blankenship back, but that moves Justin Evans down into the box, probably not leaning that direction. And as far as the defensive side for Tampa Bay, Shaq Barrett is would normally be same thing. Offensive line against Philly, I'm not starting any pass rushers, but I'm cautious about Devin White. He's been banged up all week. Don't know if he's going to play. This might be a week where you make man, that's a tough one, you guys, because I hate to ever recommend not starting Devin White. The dude's just a baller. But if he, for some reason, doesn't play, it's hard to pivot to anybody unless maybe like Nicholas Morrow or Zach Cunningham, or maybe in the final game in the Rams, maybe Jermaine Pratt might be available. But let's go to that Rams Cincinnati. Guys, did we ever think that we were going to have Matthew Stafford in the conversation of QB1, Kyron Williams in the conversation of QB1, or in the running back one, and Puka Nacua as a wide receiver one? Obviously, the answer is no. But of those three, who disappoints this week? Jonathan?
Sorry, who are the three? Puka,
Matthew Stafford, and Kyron Williams.
I don't think any of them disappoint. I'm kind of buying in on all of it. Like in my home league, I picked up picked up both Kyron Williams and Puka Nacua, and I'm playing Puka Nacua over Garrett Wilson this week, which is a bizarre situation to be in, and kind of you need kind of 5 minutes to kind of calm yourself and be like, no, this is the right decision. I'm not going insane. When you spend months kind of doing analysis and whatever, it kind of comes to this within 2 weeks of the season. But I think we just need to buy in. The volume's there, the production's there. We need to change our thoughts when evidence is put in front of us. And so yeah, I'm buying in.
I love that. Stacy, Tutu Atwell is a flex-worthy option this week. True or false?
I think it depends on who you have. I mean, his numbers say true, right? And I just, yeah, I mean, with the way that things are going, I don't know how you keep him and Puka out of your lineups. If you have better options, of course, I don't know. I think it would just depend on it would have to be a situation by situation, really. I think.
Exactly.
Too. Not for Puka though. I think Puka, after what he did against San Francisco, he's in your lineup until further notice for Puka. But Tutu, yeah, I think it depends. I would just need to see your options.
Per Dwayne McFarland, Fantasy Life, this is Puka Nacua's 39% target share is tops in the NFL. Anyone with a 37% target share after the first 2 weeks of the season, dating back to the past 10 years, has never, quote, never finished worse than the wide receiver 28 on the season. The average finish is the wide receiver 4 overall. If you're looking to buy and you think that the seller of Puka Nacua is thinking they're selling high, you still may be buying low. If I'm a stock investor and someone tells me this stock of, 22 stocks that have ever done this number and none of them have ever not hit this return, I'm going to probably be a buyer. And the same thing applies. Even knowing if Cooper Cup returns, that Puka still will be Mimosa Monday. So, or Mimosa Morning. It'd probably be Mimosa Monday if he puts up a wide receiver 4 on the season there. But on the Cincinnati side, Preston, is this just going to be a Joe Mixon heavy game, or do you have faith that, Jamar Chase and T. Higgins can still get enough involvement from, whoever? Not whoever, but you know what I'm saying.
One of them will. I still think this is going to be a Joe Mixon volume game, but both of them aren't. Both T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, they both aren't going to eat. It's going to be one of them.
Yeah. Would it shock anybody if it was Tyler Boyd because he's just short to intermediate, and that's where Browning decides to throw because he's scared to throw the ball deep?
Or it could be a Irv Smith game.
Yeah, absolutely, it could be. It very
It
easily
could be. If Brownie's playing, I could see it being an Irv Smith game.
I wouldn't be shocked in the least to see any of that. It's weird. Like I said, the Eagles offense and the Rams offense, the two we're looking forward to watching. And honestly, it's probably neither defense for the Rams or the Bengals from an IDP standpoint that I'm super enthusiastic about. Aaron Donald is not the Aaron Donald that we're used to seeing. He's still a really good player, just maybe not as much IDP relevance. Ernest Jones should, especially like we said, if it's Irv Smith, if it's Tyler Boyd, if it's Joe Mixon, however that situation unfolds, Ernest Jones could be around plenty of tackles. And on Cincinnati side, I think Sam Hubbard is probably the better play between him and Trey Hendrickson. And then both Logan Wilson and Jermaine Pratt are both solid options. And Dax Hill at defensive back is one that is rising each week with his box snaps and his ability to be all around the ball at all times. So that is week 3, ladies and gents. And I know that there's some, final thoughts. Any specific player that we didn't talk about today that you didn't get a chance to, air your grievances or show your love for? Jonathan, anybody that we didn't talk about? I think we talked for almost 4 hours. It's hard to believe there's not somebody out there.
Yeah, no, it's almost dark outside now here. But no, nothing from me.
Stacy?
I don't think so. I mean, I think I'm good to go. I'm ready for some football today.
Preston, Chris?
I've got nothing to add. Well, if you are in a GPP and if Kadarius Toney is playing, go ahead and throw him in there and thank me later.
Oh, there we go.
Okay, I've got a very last minute question then, because with Christian Watson being out, I probably need to choose between Treylon Burks and Kadarius Toney. It's a horrible situation. I appreciate. I've also got Jerick McKinnon as well.
I would probably go Toney. I think I said this going into last week, is that it wouldn't shock me to see Toney get 6 or 7 targets, because that's the Andy Reid style. It wouldn't shock me to see him do that again. But at the same time, keep in mind, Kadarius Toney's been banged up all practice all week, and he's questionable with the toe. He got limited. He's going to play from everything I understand, but it's a 3:00 start. So that might skew the results a little bit.
Yeah, if you need like a high upside play, like it's total boom because Watson's out, and outside of Johnson, like for the DB for the Bears, the other side over there it's pretty rough.
Yeah,
Oh yeah, it's gross. I would just like to throw in there, and I don't know if we've mentioned his name so far. If you really want to go balls to the wall in your tight ends position.
Yep. And that's been Fantasy and Frames for week 3. Again, follow all of us at Stacy_Perez at Dynasty Deviant. Preston, you need to put your Twitter thing in there, because I know it's not for me to remember. Please tell everybody where.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
No, I like
is that PJ 2082?
20.
You can catch all my work up there.
And Jonathan is at AJ Klonowski, and Jorge's at Jorge B. Edwards. And then you can also win his tight end play of the week. Does not follow through. Just remember that is at Coop Fiasco, or you can also just reach out directly to Stone Smart at Stony Waters with 2 S's at the end. He would love to hear why Jorge Edwards cost you money, and so did he. So, yeah, Scamper's better late than never, my friend. Taysom Hill, yes, we're thinking that could be something, and the box out game is strong and pressing. Yes, it is. He's been battling, but and look at that, boxing out. Doesn't even have to pay attention to me. But for everybody, Jorge, welcome back. Sorry, don't say it. See you guys later. Hit the music, Jorge.